He who occupies the high ground will fight to advantage. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Metaphorical peaks and valleys have been the story of this 2022 NHRA Camping World Drag Racing season. Today we park the metaphors for actual peaks and valleys at one of the world's most incredible drag racing facilities. Nestled into a gash in the earth, Bristol Dragway is beautiful, intimidating, and a natural echo chamber for the loudest and most powerful race cars mankind has ever created. The high ground overlooking Thunder Valley is occupied by a select few who have been relentlessly successful thus far in 2022. Brittany Force and Mike Salinas are both on pace to not only have career-best Top Fuel seasons, but to unseat the reigning four-time Top Fuel champion Steve Torrence. Both Force and Salinas have piled on victories this year. The pair peer into this valley with the gleeful anticipation of taking the fight to the field again. Hulking Matt Hagan and laser-focused Robert Height have fought to the funny car high ground by waging what has been one of the most epic two-man funny car battles in NHRA history to this point in a season. Strength on strength, it is a showdown for the ages. Erica Ender stands alone above this valley of performance when it comes to the Pro Stock category. With 4 wins in 6 Pro Stock races so far, she is the question no one in the class has an answer to. Steve Johnson, the current holder of the high ground and Pro Stock motorcycle, has riled up the entire category not only with his performance, but also with his jaw. Every other motivated rider will be climbing the rocky crags of performance to unseat him today. Then there are those trying to find their way out of the valley. Their fight against momentum, gravity, and the opponents in the other lane have left them no choice but as to thrash as hard as they can to reverse the course of their year. Huge names find themselves gazing longingly at the high ground. Leah Pruitt, Doug Coletta, Antron Brown, John Force, Ron Capps, Greg Anderson, Bo Butner, Angel Sampé, Matt Smith, and the rest have to drive, wrench, and ride better and faster than they have all year long if they have any hopes of stopping those in the high ground from keeping them subjugated to the valley floor. The drag strip is a flat surface, but make no mistake about it. Today, everyone is fighting for the high ground. The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals are coming up next, live on Fox. Nestled into the picturesque backdrop of Bristol, Tennessee, sits 2 of America's most iconic motorsports facilities. Famous for both Bristol Motor Speedway, the fastest and now dirtiest half-mile track on the NASCAR circuit, and one of the most breathtaking stops in the NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series Tour, iconic Thunder Valley is masterfully carved into the mountains right behind the speedway and has been hosting drag racing since the middle 1960s. And in 2022, tradition returns. The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals take place on its beloved Father's Day weekend date, where fans pour in and the families pack the stands. No 2 racers are more famous on the grounds than the father-daughter combination of John and Brittany Force. John, the 16-time Funny Car World Champion, and his daughter, the 2017 NHRA Top Fuel World Champion and current points leader, both find themselves squarely in the championship hunt of their respective categories. They headline the most diverse and explosive motorsport on earth. Hello and welcome to the broadcast booth here at Bristol Dragway. It is a stunning weekend, a stunning Sunday, and we have a lot of fun in store for you. I'm Brian Loans, joined by Tony Pedregon, the 2-time NHRA Nitro Funny Car World Champion. Happy Father's Day, buddy.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there and, of course, to our kids.
It is going to be a fantastic day of racing. And, Tony, when we talk about a ladder, we talk about our competition, the biggest names in the world of professional drag racing are here. We saw the Force families here. We know Doug Coletta's here. We know Sean Langdon's here. Name them, they're here. Normally we favor those big names, but this weekend and this racetrack may have something totally different in store for them.
Well, it's those big names that are surrounded by the best people, the biggest talent, the best cars, best equipment, and the quicker cars. But what we may well see today are those quick cars, those high-powered cars on a racetrack that may not be able to harness that horsepower. So that swings the door wide open for the 16 drivers in each of the 4 professional categories that will have a shot at that winner's circle.
It will be absolutely unpredictable, and we will kick things off as we always do with Top Fuel Eliminator. Tony, the most iconic machines in the sport.
Well, the Top Fuel Dragster is a 11,000 horsepower plus and a 300-inch wheelbase, and it's because of that mechanical advantage that these are the quickest accelerating machines on the planet. We're talking performance numbers 0 to 100 miles an hour in well under a second, and talk about top speeds at better than 335 miles per hour.
And in a situation which may be unique in motorsports but is wholly familiar to NHRA fans, a woman leads the points in Top Fuel Eliminator. Brittany Force has 3 wins in the 2022 season, and Bruno Massel is with her in the pits.
Brittany Forrest comes into Father's Day weekend here in Bristol as our Top Fuel points leader. Just so happens that her father happens to be the winningest driver in the history of the NHRA. Brittany, any additional significance for you to bring home the Wally for the family here this weekend?
It is. You know, I'm out here celebrating Father's Day with my dad, with so many other fans out here with their families. And really to, you know, bring home a win for my dad. He's given me so many opportunities. He's opened so many doors. I know it's because of him. And he's standing behind my car. He's my biggest supporter. He's my biggest fan. So love to return the favor and hand him a Wally to say thank you.
We now look at the Top Fuel standings here as Brittany Forrest leads Mike Salinas by only 25 points, defending world champion Steve Torrence by 91, Justin Ashley by 112, and those legendary names stretch out behind that. Tony Schumacher currently sitting in 10th. That 25-point gap between Brittany Forrest and Mike Salinas is fascinating, Tony, because Mike Salinas may be every bit the match that Brittany Forrest has coming.
You know, and Mike Salinas not quite the overnight success. I've seen Mike race from 2012, only showed up a few races, but it just goes to show you what hiring the right people, hiring the right talent, doing your job, doing your homework, improving your ability as a race car driver, and boy, what difference time makes.
He won Epping, and he's also won here multiple times. Epping, our last race, but we go back to 2019 in Bristol, where he carded his first career victory, an emotional one on this Father's Day weekend. And then we came back in 2021, and he did it again against another of the Capco Contractors car, igniting an engine at the top end of the racetrack. But this is a racetrack that Mike Salinas loves, and frankly, it loves him back.
And of course, Mike Salinas is coming into this race with a different tuner from those previous 2 wins a few years ago. However, continues to get to that winner's circle.
Look at this stat line from just this racetrack. First career final in 18, wins in 19. We did not race here in 2020. He won in 2021, and he comes into Eliminations Day as the #1 qualifier. It's the only place he has won multiple times, and Jamie Howe has more on the success of Mike Salinas.
The success Mike Salinas has enjoyed here over the last couple of seasons came with a different crew chief calling the shot. So them unloading as the #1 qualifier this weekend for only the second time this season was still a little bit of a surprise. But with Rob Flynn making all of the decisions this year, Mike says they are sneaking up on the Top Fuel competition. But that competition, they've seen them win 3 races, 2 semifinal appearances, and only have 1 first-round loss through these first 8 races. They have a better round record than our point leader, Brittany Forrest. Their issue, though, has been in penalties. They've lost 5 for an oil down, another 15 for centerline violations. And if they can keep those penalties to a minimum, they're going to be a hard team to keep up with. They have not had any issues yet this weekend. They start race day with the #16 qualifier, Cameron Foray.
Thank you, Jamie, as we now take a look at our Lucas Oil competition ladder and Top Fuel. And Tony, this is big-time stuff. We have Spencer Massey and Sean Langdon, but how about that? Antron Brown and Tony Schumacher, round 1.
Well, just right across the railroad tracks, there's Austin Prock and Leah Pruitt, number 7 and 10 qualifiers. That's going to be a big one.
Now that we know the matchups, it is time for the traditional beginning of an NHRA Race Day Sunday. And as they have done on NHRA weekends here since 1965, a pair of Top Fuel dragsters have started to begin the day, as Top Fuel Eliminator will begin with Austin Prock and Leah Pruitt heating their tires and preparing themselves to try to advance on to round number 2. The snarling, cackling engines have ignited and they head to the water box. The ritual of the burnout to clean and heat the tires as the 2 cars come to a stop and back up. We take a look, Tony, at our crew chief's weather. What does this say to you?
Well, ideal temperature, 70 degrees. That's a good day. High UV here at this facility, increasing the track temperature to 117 degrees. And the way it works, the cooler the racetrack, the more grip. The hotter it gets, it takes some of the grip away. These tuners have to make adjustments and slip and slide the clutch for the car to maintain traction.
And now Austin Prock, the Montana Brands car, pre-stage. Leah Pruitt, wearing the Mobil 1 colors, has grabbed her side of the racetrack. Austin Prock smokes the tires, pedals the throttle, but it will be Leah. 3.835 seconds at 324 miles an hour, better than she's run all weekend. Austin Prock, the white smoke indicating that loss of traction down course left him winless.
With the exception of the starting line advantage, and it was very slight, it went to Austin Prock. but these two matched up in the last qualifying session, and the performance roles were reversed. It was Austin Prock making one of his best runs of qualifying. However, on race day, it was Leah Pruitt making the better run. You could see the tire pattern directly behind the Austin Prock car. You could see it rattling. He did get the car to recover. That's an art for some of these drivers to do. However, in the other lane, it was Leah not making any mistakes as a driver, and they put a good car underneath her.
So Leah will advance to the second round for the second race in a row. She did the same thing in Epping. We'll find out how long her day will remain. As we talk about some of the maintenance work done to this racetrack, Tony, significant changes made to level the track and then grind some of the bumps down.
Well, they not only ground it, they have parameters that NHRA provided in terms of how competitively they want this track to be. And it almost seemed like they fixed one thing and created another, because when they did grind it, it removed all the rubber, and it takes a lot of runs, a lot of traction compound, a lot of rubber to re-establish the amount of traction that these cars require. However, it does seem to be coming back in, and of course the teams are making those proper adjustments.
Let's dive deeper into it with this week's Cornwall Crew Chief Confidential.
To prepare for this year's event here at Bristol Dragway, a big investment was made into improving the track surface, and instrumental in those changes was Kurt Johnson. Kurt, talk me through the changes that were made and why.
So basically, NHRA gave us a set of parameters that would give us a safe racetrack. We measured the track. Anything that was outside of those parameters, we did what's called bump grinding across them to lower those down. At the same time, SMI came in and through hydraulics lifted the low spots. And so we got the track within the tolerance of safety.
Now, one of the other jobs that you do is work with TSR, Tony Stewart Racing, and giving their crew chiefs information in terms of track prep. How do you translate the changes that this track went through?
So basically, you see us out on the track before a run. We have different tools to measure grip and so forth. And then through telemetry, we literally send it to their cell phone so they can see it in the lanes and make a last-minute decision.
And those last-minute decisions, as he said, ultimately come down to the crew chiefs. Here's what they have to say about the improved racing surface.
Well, it's all about the data. You know, we've got Kurt Johnson, who's an excellent track guy. He travels the country dealing with racetracks, so we've got him on board, and he's been here all week working on this racetrack, and just we have massive amounts of data as far as where any imperfections could be. It's I don't know any better way to explain it. It's just all about the data. We get the data in, and then we get to work around that.
Well, it's making it a little easier than it was because they've taken some of the bumps out of it. So, this has always been a challenging place, but we like racing here, and we just gotta read the conditions and do our best to get down there.
Well, what we do is, we go off historical data, the history of the racetrack and its personality, and we compile the best information that we can with what's available to us, and we work off tune-up models, and hopefully all the pieces fall into place that we can perform and hit our marks. But it's definitely challenging, and there's no real easy solution. It's sort of like, we do our best to get down it, but most of the time, we're up there that hoping it all works.
And so now we will watch these crew chiefs, that being Mike Green, the Phillips Connect Top Fuel Dragster. He leads Justin Ashley's team. And this is Josh Hart, the R&L Carriers team. His crew chief, Ron Douglas. Two talented drivers, two very evenly matched cars. Both machines now inching ahead into the fully staged position. And a barber of a contest that will see Justin Ashley taking the win, a 382.4 beating a 382.7, and Tony, the score was really settled on the starting line.
Brian, if you ever wondered what it's like when you hit your opponent, he does not fall. In fact, he beats you to the punch. A couple of things are happening on the racetrack. Justin Ashley was the big underdog, only based on qualifying. They never really got a full run. Both of these cars ran exceptionally well. In fact, Josh Hart gave Justin Ashley his best shot, but it was Justin off of the starting line first and finally getting a good competitive full run that just overwhelmed his opponent. It is Josh Hart.
Justin Ashley will advance on to round number 2. This team trying to get some momentum in its sails, and it sure appears as though they have got that done. A look down onto the drag racing surface from our Fatheads Eyewear drone camera as we are off and running with Top Fuel Eliminator Round 1. When we come back, you'll see two of the sport's great superstars, multiple-time championships, Antron Brown and Tony Schumacher, square off when we come back.
Camp for less at Camping World. Right now, get a new Coleman Lantern 17B, this camping starter kit, 2 years of Good Sam Road Rescue, and a 3-year Good Sam RV warranty for just $149 a month. That's less than $5 a day. Plus, we have the best selection of camping and RV supplies starting at just $9.99. We've got an RV for every lifestyle and a payment for every budget. Camping has never been more affordable. You always camp for less at Camping World. Click, call, or come into your local Camping World today.
The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Camping World, making RVing fun and easy since 1966. Music.
And we take a look at our Lucas Oil Top Fuel ladder to see that Leah Pruitt from the 10th spot, Justin Ashley from the 14th spot have both advanced. So those are lower half qualifiers that have punched above their weight class here in round one. There is no other weight class other than heavyweight for these two. Antron Brown, Tony Schumacher. So we meet again, the 72nd all-time meeting between these two multi-time champions. 38-33, the all-time round win score, favoring Brown and his Matco Tools, Lucas Oil, Sirius XM Top Fueler. It is the Skag Power Equipment machine for Tony Schumacher. Schumacher has cylinders misfiring, and it's Antron Brown. 3.863 seconds, 313.88 miles an hour. And what we're seeing develop very quickly, Tony, these teams that need the round wins, like Pruitt, like Brown, they're getting them.
Well, you're seeing two high-level operators on the starting line. Both of them get off to a good start, but it's going to be Tony Schumacher in the far lane that is going to break traction. Now, what he was chasing, what he had to compete with was Antron Brown making some very good, consistent runs on this relatively tricky track. Now, what the master and Tony Schumacher was able to do, you saw the white puff of smoke come off. This car lost traction. Most inexperienced drivers would not know how to deal with that. Unfortunately for him, like a couple of other opponents that we've already seen, it was Antron Brown not making any mistakes.
Now let's go to the top end. Leah Pruitt is with Jamie Howe.
At 383 for Leah Pruitt, her best run of the weekend. You had a 70 light. To have these big numbers going into race day now that you're going rounds, how does that help you progress?
Man, well, I mean, everything is about logic. We're trying to take the emotion out of everything. But I want to say from our Mobile One team to everyone out there, good job, Justin. Happy Father's Day. And for the countless number of hours that our team puts in, you know, our little wins are huge to us, and we're going to keep those going. But just want to say huge thanks to Neil and to Mike and Ryan and everybody for doing a fantastic job and just for sticking to the program, sticking to the plan. You know, it's tricky out there, and just looking forward to round two. Thanks, Jamie.
As Cameron Ferret and Mike Salinas begin their staging procedure, Salinas backing up for the burnout. You know, one of the most iconic parts of a drag strip, of course, is what we call the Christmas tree. If you're just tuning in, if you're an unfamiliar fan of NHRA drag racing, it's a very simple system to know. Those two lights on the top mean when both of them are illuminated that both cars are lined up side by side and ready to race. The three yellow lights will flash, and as soon as they flash, you better not be waiting for green to leave.
Of course, Brian, there's a lot of mental warfare that plays into that. It could be the equivalent of a boxer having quick hands, a quarterback, quick release of the ball. It does have its benefits to be quick in one of these top fuel cars.
Mike Salinas, the Valley Services car, heavily favored here, the #1 qualifier. Cameron Ferret, the young man from Huntington Beach, California, who has scrapped and scraped his way to the world of top fuel drag racing in Terry Haddock's machine. Immediate tire smoke for Ferret as Salinas goes 375.4 at 329.99 miles an hour. That is brutal. Low ET and top speed of the meet in round one.
Well, what's so impressive about it, Brian, is you have to know who your opponent is, what their capabilities are. So you would think that Mike Salinas has the luxury of pulling this car back. There's Terry Haddock launching. You could see the front wheels coming up initially within the first 30 feet. Good weight distribution. However, it didn't hang on. You could see those rear Goodyear slicks just breaking traction.
Next pair up in top fuel, it is Lex June taking on the four-time defending champ Steve Torrence. Surprising at this point of the season, Steve Torrence does not have a victory on tour. The tune-up that this team has used over the last 4 years to win championship, they decided to abandon going into this season, knowing that they needed to step it up. That tune-up they felt was tapped out. The end result has been some struggles for this team, but the new tune-up is starting to show dividends. #1 qualifier in Epping and 3 consistent runs over the course of this weekend. Something that shows that they've got their swagger back.
And Lex June's got some swagger. He's trying to hang in there with Torrence, and he almost got him. They run identical elapsed times, but the only thing that saved Steve Torrence was his reaction time. An 0.66 light to the 1:18 of Lex June. That was a barn burner.
Brian did not see that coming. Now what happens to Steve Torrence, you can see his top end speed, only 261 miles an hour from a better than 320 mile an hour car. It looked like he encountered problems, whether it was tire slippage, tire smoke, maybe it was something mechanical with the engine. We're going to get another look at it, but it was Lex June who was a heavy underdog, and it really goes down on the starting lane. We talk about the quick reflexes, but this is what a championship winning driver will do. He is always amped up. He could have laid up a little bit. He could have played it safe, played the odds, allowed Lex June to get a little jump. He knows he has the power to drive around him, but that wasn't the case. This is a championship racing driver right here in Steve Torrence, and they run nearly identical times, but this is the benefit of getting off of the starting line first. It amounts to a half a car length.
It was the last race in Epping that Steve lost first round to a man who had never won a round of competition, and he barely snuck one that out around June. So Steve Torrence breathes a sigh of relief. He will move on to round 2, and it is Father's Day here at Bristol Dragway, and the dads are having a blast. Happy Father's Day to all the pops out there, whether you're watching on TV or have joined us at the race this weekend. When we come back, Top Fuel Round 1 continues. Total Seal Piston Rings Nitro School was a huge hit this weekend at Bristol Dragway, an opportunity for our fans to learn more about the inner workings of Top Fuel dragsters and Nitro funny cars. Alan Reinhardt was joined by Neil Strasbaugh, Leah Pruitt's crew chief, to explain things like the staging process, how the fuel systems work, the clutches, and the other complex, incredible systems on these amazing race cars. We now move on to the starting line with Doug Coletta and Brittany Force, another of these jaw-dropping matchups in round 1. Coletta, of course, is trying to find his footing, where Brittany Force owns the category right now as the number 1 in the points. Bruno has more.
Talking with David Grubnick, a guy who never lays up. He said he's been holding back in qualifying after a big explosion in the first qualifying session where they don't know why. He said right now it's an anomaly. We can't afford for it to be a pattern.
And Doug Coletta left first. He pedals, but it will be Brittany sending him flavor packing home. She goes 384.4 at 312 miles an hour. Coletta pedaling his car to a 406, but boy, he had a big starting line advantage before it all went up in smoke.
Doug Coletta is another one of those extremely good, sharp drivers, a lot of experience, and he did another, like Tony Schumacher, a masterful job of getting this car to regain traction. Can you imagine trying to harness those 11,000 horsepower throughout maintaining the throttle? You can see, take a look at those throttle blades right there. That is where the air comes in. That's what makes the horsepower, along with the nitromethane fuel and the massive amount of spark in each cylinder. And you can see those rear Goodyears have regained traction. However, in the other lane, it was Brittany Force doing what she did in qualifying, and that was run well.
So for Brittany Force and David Grubnick, they move themselves on to round 2, where they'll be facing another legend in the form of Antron Brown. Speaking of Brittany, this week's This is a Repair for Pep Boys will show that explosion that Bruno referenced moments ago, and this was a nasty one. We normally don't see this car fail in this destructive a manner.
Well, you did see the raw fuel pouring out of the right bank, the right header. Now we're at 1,500 feet in elevation, so the air is much thinner. The tuners have to mechanically change the setup. They have to increase the compression. They have to pump more air into the engine just to make up for the loss of air, and sometimes if they go over center, this could be the end result.
Antron Brown also had a massive explosion during qualifying. Watch the carbon fiber injector on the top of that engine annihilated, just like the Hummels my father and I accidentally annihilated as kids when we were having a pillow fight in the house. Mom's still sore about that one. Now let's go to the top end with Steve Torrence and Jamie Howe.
When the tune-up didn't stick for Steve Torrence, he used that 66 at the tree to get the whole shot win over Lex June. Happy Father's Day, first of all. But at what point does this program need to turn around here on race day?
We're good. I mean, you know, sometimes you got to be lucky, sometimes you got to be good. And I was good on the tree and got lucky at the end. So these Capco contractors, the boys, they'll turn this car around. We'll be back up for next round. Lex June did a great job, and I mean, we just got by on the skin of our teeth on that one, but we're going to try to get this win on Father's Day.
Steve Torrence walks away. We're on the back of Clay Millican's car, the Summit Racing Equipment onboard camera. Clay Millican had one of the most iconic moments of his career here on Father's Day in 2017, and Bruno Massel talked to him about it in the pits.
Clay, talk about the significance of that first victory for you 5 years ago today.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, for me, after, you know, what our family's been through, coming up here, Bristol does such an amazing job for all the fathers on Father's Day, but all I wanted to do was race and not think about it. I didn't want to look at my phone. I didn't want to see the text messages. And for the way the day unfolded, it was one of those deals that it was a message from my kid that it's okay to be happy on Father's Day. And nothing will ever surpass that win, no matter how many races I win from here forward. That was the greatest day of my racing career. Period.
Right. And of course, the emotion so high because of the passing of his son Dalton. And that message came down from on high as we look down to see crew chief Jim Oberhofer next to Clay's car, the Parts Plus Summit Racing Equipment Top Fuel Dragster. Across the racetrack is Doug Foley. Foley, the privateer team, trying to make an impact this season, and they have so far. They made the finals at the Gator Nationals. It is Milliken smoking the tires early. Foley smoking the tires down track, and it is a battle of attrition, but won by Doug Foley. 4.704 at 245 miles an hour. Foley will advance, and not a picture-perfect run, but they'll take the win line.
Brian, anytime you talk about high-powered cars, you need traction. Traction is the name of the game, and we can see that Clay Milliken instantly loses traction, but not long after that, it's Doug Foley getting in trouble. What happens to a driver is they lose traction. It's a little bit of a surprise because you get somewhat a target fixation on the finish line, but here's Doug Foley going to break traction, going to allow the rear to settle down, get back in the throttle. It'll take a little while, but he does get it to the finish line.
Last pair here in Top Fuel, it is Sean Langdon versus Spencer Massey. Two of the best drivers to ever strap themselves into a Top Fuel dragster. Spencer Massey doesn't come out here and race off, and when he does, he's a guy who makes and serves notice, so to speak. On the side of this car, he's got a number written 383 on either side of the cowl. That is his dial-in, so to speak. It is a prediction of the ET that he feels this car will run. It's a guy, when he's not racing, this car is practice racing across the country and does so at a very high level. He told me he will be between 38 to 48 on the tree, and if he can run that 383, he is going to give Sean Langdon a whole lot to work for this round.
Sean Langdon looking to do something very rare. He's looking to double up. He's actually racing in Super Comp this weekend at this event, and he has a bye into the final round of that category. Massey smokes the tires, pops an engine, and Sean Langdon moves to round number 2. 3.809 at 322.5 miles an hour. A car that qualified at 386. They poured on the coals.
Well, it's only getting better for Sean Langdon. This is the kind of performance, the kind of consistency, the improvements that this team has needed all year long. They have showed flashes of having the kind of performance, but they qualified well. Both of them very good off the starting line. The prophecy from Spencer Massey was spot on. He did get a slight jump, but we do have a track temperature that is starting to creep up, becoming more and more difficult for these cars to, again, to apply that kind of power that these cars are making and making it stick.
SCMR Roofing and Construction dragster of Langdon will face off against Mike Salinas, Antron Brown and Brittany Force, Steve Torrance and Leah Pruitt. Then it will be Justin Ashley and Doug Foley in round 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator. When we come back, it will be time for the Nitro Funny Cars. And if you think the hair-raising Top Fuelers are fun to watch, wait till you see Alexis DeJoria. The Toyota inboard will show her wrestling her GR Supra down the 1,000-foot course here at Bristol Dragway. Stay with us. The Nitro Funny Cars are up next.
The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Toyota. Let's go places.
As we continue on with the action here at Thunder Valley, at the Thunder Valley Nationals, Matt Hagan is a central part of the story as he is leading the Nitro Funny Car points and trying to stave off a lot of very hard runners. Of course, Matt Hagan competes in the Nitro Funny Car category, and Tony, this is your wheelhouse.
Well, Brian, and what lurks underneath that body will feature Ford, Chevy, Toyota, even Dodge Aerodynamics is a 500 cubic inch supercharged engine, just like what we saw in the Top Fuel machine. Let's talk about some performance in excess excess of 330 miles an hour within 1,000 feet. Even the exhaust from these cars provides some of the downforce.
They are incredible machines to watch. They are devilish to drive, and they will be absolutely tough to handle on this surface. Matt Hagan has been signing autographs and giving out mustaches this weekend as he won in Epping, New Hampshire, sporting that handlebar facial here, and he has kept it, trying to keep the success going on here in Bristol Dragway. How does it look for Matt Hagan? Well, just like him, he's looked like the Hulk this year.
But we got Tony Stewart's first win in a drag car, and that's pretty awesome.
Blake Alexander whips the tires. Matt Hagan goes 391.0 at 330.96 miles an hour, and Tony Stewart Racing has entered the history books of NHRA drag racing as a winning operation.
It's unbelievable, but my first win at the Gators, yeah! Woo!
You know, I mean, obviously Tony gives us the parts and pieces that we need to go out here and perform and, you know, run on top. And Dickie Venables is just, you know, he's amazing, man. I mean, I've been so blessed to have him in my corner. And, you know, it's a new feel, a new atmosphere, a new vibe here. And we're just really coming together, I think.
They leave the starting line. Bobby Bodie's 074, and he blows the body off the car going through the finish line stripe. Bobby maintains control of the automobile. Matt Hagan wins the drag race 398.2.
It's going to be a throwdown. I mean, Robert again, you know, in the finals like the last race. And I don't know. I mean, if we were in Vegas, I'd say it's our turn to win one. But, you know, we're going to have a tough race ahead of us. He's a good driver.
They leave. Robert smokes the tires. Matt Hagan has won a fourth NHRA New England Nationals. 392.2, 327.98 miles an hour. And so much for Height's undefeated record against Matt Hagan. Matt Hagan's season has been nothing short of incredible thus far. It is his first season with Tony Stewart Racing. He does lead the points. He has already accrued 3 wins in 6 final round appearances. And if it wasn't for a guy named Robert Height, he would be running away from the entirety of the field. We caught up with Matt Hagan in the pits to talk about what he believes he's going to need to succeed here at Bristol Dragway.
Despite the 3 wins this season and the momentum of being the most recent winner in Funny Car, Matt Hagan himself says this is a pressure-filled weekend. Now, this is also a home race for you. You have a lot of family on hand here. What does that do to your mindset as you go into race day?
Well, honestly, I think the pressure comes from winning with the mustache, you know, last weekend, and then coming back here and having the mustache again. And, I mean, that's where I'm getting all my anxiety and pressure from. It's like, got to keep this stash thing going. But, no, in all honesty, this is a big race for me. I got my corporation and you know, on the car here, and we're really wanting to do well, get out there, get on TV, have some fun doing it. But so many friends, so many family, Father's Day weekend, so much stuff going on, big sponsor race here. And you know, it's one of those things where we just want to do well, keep the momentum going. But I believe in my team, I believe in my guys. Dickie Venables is doing a great job. Wouldn't ask for anybody else out there, and we're going to have fun out here. It's Bristol. I'm 2 hours from home, so I sure would like to party with all these folks that you know, that I've grown up knowing and come to my local tracks and see me, you know, come up here and do what we do. So we're just going to go out there and have fun today.
If Matt Hagan has looked like Superman in his funny car, then his Lex Luthor has been Robert Height, who has been keeping pace with him throughout the beginning of this season.
Well, Brian, you saw the first race of the year, a glitch on the starting line. Robert was able to collect himself, stay focused, and get this car into the winner's circle against a very tough opponent.
That was the first race of the season, and it began to set what we thought was going to be the tone for the real kind of stretch of the season. Because in the very next race, it was Hagan and Height in the final, and it was Height winning again, back-to-back to kick things off. Then the team hit, at least for them anyway, a bit of a performance lull until we got back to Richmond, Virginia, and once again he found himself next to Matt Hagan.
Brian, and what we're going to see, what we have been seeing, are not a couple of welterweights. These are heavyweights in the funny car category. Expect to see this the course of the year.
They bring out the best at each other. They race each other incredibly hard, and Robert Height's season has been very, very strong as well, sitting second in the points. Also has 3 wins, tied with Matt Hagan for most in the category, and he has made 4 final rounds, trailing only Matt Hagan as second in the class. We now go down to Robert Height, who's with Bruno Massel.
Early in the weekend, we spoke about the championship prize fight between Matt Hagan and this man, Robert Height. Well, Hagan struck hard last weekend in Epping, and now it is time for Robert Height to step up. You did just that. You threw the first punch and getting that #1 qualifying spot. What is it going to take for you and your team to, well, take the next step and get your 4th victory here this season and at a very tough track here in Bristol?
Yeah, it's been challenging out here, but you know, I think if we run 3-second runs all day today, we're going to give ourselves the best chance of holding the Wally at the end of the day. You saw cars that were really close to doing it yesterday. We didn't. You know, we ran 4:04 the second run, which was our best run in the heat, and we're gonna have to step that up. So I think if we make 3-second runs, it's ours.
And that may be much easier said than done over what we have seen in qualifying. We look at our Lucas Oil ladder presenting the first round of the competition in Nitro Funny Car. And the major matchups here include Bob Tasker III taking on last year's winner Alexis DeJoria. And on the right-hand side of the ladder, Tony, your brother, Cruz Pedregon, taking on J.R. Todd.
You know, and J.R. Todd doesn't have the most experience. He's not the biggest veteran we see in this field. However, he has created a little bit of a rivalry with Cruz.
We are back here at Bristol Dragway. The body coming down around Jack Wyatt in his Nitro Funny Car. Wyatt from Seymour, Iowa is a dedicated independent. Fun story about Jack. Way back in the day, 14 years old, he builds his own gasser. He's so young he can't even drive it, has one of his buddies race it for him at the drag strip. He's been in this sport nearly longer than anybody on the property. And that is Tim Wilkerson, the Levi, Ray, and Shout Mustang. Over on the Toyota side of the drag strip, Wyatt on the E3 spark plug side. As Jack Wyatt
is shutting off Tim Wilkerson, and he gave him the brake signal. It doesn't, while they're shutting off Jack Wyatt, the signal from Tim Wilkerson's crew chief was that you have breakage in the other lane.
Wilkerson kept it glued for most of the racetrack, manages a 4:13 at 2:59, but it did get loose down course. And we get a look here in the pit area of Antron Brown as his team is well into the process of turning this car around and preparing it for round 2. The Lucas Oil pit cam giving us a bird's eye view of that process. Jack Wyatt's car had a loose valve cover which leaked a lot of oil on the starting line. The NHRA Safety Safari went to work, cleaned all of that oil up. Now Del Worsham and Alexis DeJoria are in that left lane. They did not have lane choice in this pair, so they cannot get away from that. Typically, though, when the Safety Safari does its work, the lane ends up better than it was before the spill. Bob Tasker's on the other side of the drag strip. TaskaParts.com Mustang for Bob Tasker. He won here in 2019, and it was a kickoff of a couple of very good weeks for Bob.
Bob Tasker has had some very strong moments. We're going to see him get a big win here. Look at the opponent in the other lane. That is John Force, the 16-time champion.
Force at this point was trying to win his 150th event, and Bob Tasker says, not against me, pal, as he stopped him cold in his tracks here in the final round with his sons in tow on Father's Day. Alexis DeJoria last year took on J.R. Todd in the final and strapped a 002 light on him for the win.
Just out of nowhere, this team is very capable. You have a capable championship-winning crew chief as a driver as well. And, of course, Alexis has won the biggest race of the year, the U.S. Nationals, to her credit.
Bruno Massel has more on Alexis.
Speaking of Alexis, I spoke with Del Worsham, her crew chief, back in the pits this morning and asked him what some of the struggles have been with this team. He said, basically, we're in a situation where the tuning window in this car has gotten very small, very little margin of error. A small adjustment I make to the calibration makes a huge tune-up on the track. So we're trying to find a middle ground, and that's put us behind. The end result is that we have a good car here in round number 1 with Bob Tasker. We think we can find a 4-0 mark, but the question is it going to be enough to race that car alongside of us?
Both cars tearing up the starting line. Alexis way over by the wall. DeJoria goes 4:11.4 at 273 miles an hour. The car very loose out there with cylinders misfiring. Bob Tasker III has his own issues. 4:68.6 in the loss. So the number 12 qualifier upends number 5. The same pattern we saw in Top Fuel.
Well, we're really going to get a hard look at Alexis's car at the finish line, or rather near the finish line. If she comes in contact with the wall, then her run, her win, will not count. There's the cylinder going out. She gets very close. We'll have to get another look. It looks like she may have come in contact with that flap, but the flap doesn't count. She has to brush up against the wall. She may be pondering that right now, but we will get another look at it.
And this is what it looks like to try to manhandle, or in this case, woman handle, an 11,000 horsepower Nitro Funny Car. You can see Alexis giving the car full right rudder there to try to keep it off the concrete wall. The run stands. We'll be back with more Funny Car when we return. Back here at the Thunder Valley Nationals, Tony, one more look at just how close Alexis got down there at the top end of the racetrack.
Well, she's already off the throttle, but the car continues to push. Now, I was taking a look to see if the exhaust headers would stick out about a foot. outside of the body, but you can see the car fishtailing. So more than likely, we're looking at that rear quarter panel, and it hits the flags, but there was no contact with the wall. She does advance into round 2.
Robert Height, the #1 qualifier of the Auto Club Chevrolet Camaro out of John Force Racing. He said they want 3-second runs all 4 rounds today. Starts here. Wag the tail, 408.5 at 268 miles an hour, so they're going to need at least 3 out of 4 to come close to the prediction, but with nobody in the other lane, there was no harm in trying to push a little bit there as it broke traction. So Height will advance, the car running fairly strong in the front half, spinning the tires in the back half. Jamie Howe is with Ms. Alexis DeJoria, who just had herself a close shave at the top end.
You saw how close that was to the wall on the video feed. When Alexis got out of the car, you actually looked at the side of the body just to make sure. The perception in those moments, how do you manage that when there's so little time to react?
I just kept looking at that wall with one eye going, not today, not today, not today. It was ugly, but we got the win. I actually got him on the starting line too. That's not an everyday occurrence. But it was ugly. I mean, we're not out here running, 380s. We're out here running 4s. So if we got the win, excellent. I don't care what we ran and how we did it. We got the win. We're going on. Thank you.
And this is Alexis being informed by the NHRA Safety Safari that the run was good, and she held her fingers up like, I knew it was that close. A clap of the hands and a smile inside that helmet as we get one more look now at our Lucas Oil competition ladder to see that #2 qualifier Tim Wilkerson advanced, #1 qualifier Robert Height, and #12 qualifier Alexis DeJoria into round #2. Now we look at John Force sitting in his car awaiting the signal to fire up. John Force has great memories here at Thunder Valley, of course. Bristol Dragway back in 1999 was home to one of the most unique races ever run. This week's Dodge Tales from the Strip. Tony, we go back to the No Bull Showdown, which pitted Top Fuel dragsters versus Nitro funny cars.
Well, and there was big money on the line, better than $200,000. You could see the classic final round. It was a Top Fuel dragster against John Force and his funny car. Not just a funny car, it was the Superman car.
And John Forrest said, well, you know what? They may call the dragsters the kings of the sport, but tonight the funny cars rule. And there is John as part of the kind of Legion of Honor here at Bristol Dragway. So many great names as part of that wall of legends of Thunder Valley. John Forrest certainly part of that. Terry Haddock looking to certainly make a name for himself here on this pair, the Circle Racing Wheels Mustang out of Texas. The long odds here for Terry Haddock, but Haddock will give it his best shot. John Force, we watch now the staging camera, very interesting, and we're going to see how far John stages this car in on this run. Haddock smoking the tires early, John Force smoking them late, pedaling to a 4:13.8 at 265 miles an hour. Daniel Hood looks on as John Forrest takes that win light. We look at our upcoming races here on our Fox Broadcast Network. We next week go to Norwalk, Ohio, Sunday, June 26th. Denver, Sonoma, Seattle, the famed Western Swing. Then we go to Brainerd, Minnesota, and the U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis. And finally on Sunday, September 18th, also on the Fox Broadcast Network. Check your local listings for time. That will be the event that is adjacent to an NFL football game. Depending on your home market, it could run either before the game or after. So pay attention to your local listings as we now go to the starting line. And, well, this is a local listing, a local race for Matt Hagan. The True Harvest Colors, one of his kind of family of businesses that he operates. And this guy, he's always into something. He decided to rescue a deer at the drag strip yesterday. Tony, you've done some things in your career, but have you ever done this?
I've never gone out in the wilderness in a fire suit, let alone touched a deer. My only comment is, oh dear.
So the fawn was kind of returned back to the natural habitat as it was kind of lost up there in the hills. So I'm not sure what that thing was thinking as Matt was carrying it down like a football. Across the racetrack is Phil Burkhardt Jr. out of Yorkville, New York, the Herzhauser Racing Team. This is a team that is based out of Virginia. They run a handful of events a year. That is Jimbo Ermolovich walking to the back of the car, who served as crew chief for such luminaries as Al Hoffman back in the day. And Matt goes for 16.9, 279 miles an hour to pick up a win light. And we're seeing a lot of these great cars making the runs they need to make to win the first round, but the world-beating numbers just aren't in the cards at the moment. Very, very interesting. There's always a lot of fun things to do here in the Bristol area, and one of those things to do is, of course, to get some great food to eat and drink. Well, earlier this week, I got to hang out with Ron Capps, and we went and visited one of his NASCAR friends, Michael Waltrip, who's in the beer and food business. In a little while, we'll show you the entire adventure of Winging It with Ron.
The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Pep Boys Auto Service and Tires. We go further to help you go farther.
As we continue on with round one, some people's hopes and dreams are swimming with the fishes at the bottom of that pond. We got to look now at the Fatheads eyewear drone cam looking over top of Bristol Dragway, the famed Thunder Valley. Bruno has more on this pair. We have J.R. Todd and Cruz Pedregon. But Bruno, you're going to talk about J.R.
Yeah, it's a great matchup here. I talked to JR this morning about facing off against Cruz, and he told me, you know, the guy's a wily veteran. He finds a way to make people mess up on the starting line. Never really sure what he's going to do, but he's going to do something. He said, for the strategy-wise, I'd really try not to do the same thing twice so people don't have an angle on me and how to attack me as a driver. What I need to go up there and do, though, is try to ignore what Cruz is trying to pull off and just focus on my lane and do my own thing, kind of like I do when I run John Force.
Brian, what they're talking about is staging. It's no different than a road racer that would use the apex just to improve the performance. Now, take a look. This is the stage area. Cruz is likely to roll the car in. He has up to this point to pre-stage the car, and then he has all of this real estate to stage the car. He can do it here lightly, or he can roll as far as that line right there. That's what we call deep staging. You're simply shortening the track to increase your odds of getting to the finish line first.
Cruz Pedregon fairly shallow on stage with a 49 line. What a throwdown here. A 414 beat is a 416. 414, 302 with a misfiring cylinder for Pedregon. A 416.8 for J.R. Todd. Not quick enough.
Well, we talk about staging, and one of the things that staging, rolling the car in, is it has a tendency to shorten the track up, but it does slow your 60 foot down. But the name of the game is to get to the finish line first. This was a very close race, a 416 to a 413 for the snap-on car. You take another look at that. If Cruz doesn't shorten the track, well, there's a good chance that J.R. Todd makes this a lot closer than it could have been.
A 300ths advantage at the finish line stripe, as shown by our Lucas Oil finish line camera. That is the distance differential at 302 miles an hour. The fans here busy walking through the pits, checking out everything there is to see here at Bristol Dragway in these NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals. What's to see right now is Chad Green and Jim Campbell on the starting line. The DePinto Logistics Dodge. Tony, if there is a car that has built, designed, and perfected the art of a low 4-second funny car run, it's this one.
Well, there's a few reasons. They're not going to make force or drag working with a 5-speed transmission, steel engine block with aluminum cylinder heads, electronic fuel injection, burning a high-octane gasoline that will power 210 miles an hour plus.
They are studies in precision, studies in hand-eye coordination, and studies in car control. Let's talk a little bit more about Erica Enders and what she has been able to accomplish over the course of this year. She has been a 4-time champion. She is on the drive for 5 right now, and this drive does not seem to be abated. Outside of qualifying this week, she has had the strongest car at basically every race we've been to, but she was not the quickest here.
Brian, a lot of times we focus on her ability to be quick off of the starting line because a lot of races are determined right there. It could make or break you, but she does have great car control, good mechanics. She hits her shift points, and all of those things are very delicate, very finely tuned in these machines.
Let's hear from Erica. She's with Jamie Howe.
For Erica Enders, 4 wins on the season includes the 3 that have come back-to-back. Erica, the term momentum has been used against you, but also unstoppable. What can the other Pro Stock teams do to catch up?
I guess just go to work. They're doing a great job. The field isn't separated by very much. We struggled this weekend coming off of the trailer. On Friday, did not make a great run. Saturday morning, did not make a great run, and we did okay yesterday to position ourselves 3rd today, which I don't mind that spot at the bottom of the ladder. But, these guys are tough out here. Everybody is. But, again, all the faith in the world in my team. They've worked really hard for this, and we're going to keep it rolling as long as we can.
We now take a look back in qualifying. Greg Anderson, the defending world champion and the winningest Pro Stock driver in history, has been relatively silent so far in 2022, but qualifying session 1, he roared.
Brian, we're talking about being at elevation 1,500 feet. These cars really have to attempt to make more power. They do a lot of that by gearing the car up, but out of the gate, Greg Anderson does appear to be very strong.
Certainly established himself as one of the favorites early on, and then a young Aaron Stanfield, who has been a force to be reckoned with over the last couple of seasons in this class, established his idea of what fast should be at Thunder Valley as he took his Chevrolet Camaro past the finish line at 6:63, bettering Greg's time by 0.5 of a second, a significant margin in this category. And then it was time for qualifying session 3, and the Quadra family, a father and two sons, all racing concurrently in Pro Stock, had one of the more interesting afternoons of their existence as the two sons managed to bump their dad out of the qualified field and Christian finished the job. And this is really a high-stress situation because it is the last qualifying session, but they are very competitive, and he was able to hold that pressure and get in the show. So Fernando Sr. will be able to enjoy his Father's Day spectating as his son's drag race as we look at our Lucas Oil Pro Stock ladder. Fernando Quadra Jr. will take on Troy Coughlin Jr., a battle of second-generation drag racers in Pro Stock. On the right side of the ladder, Camry Caruso and Chris McGahey. The daughter and the father, if you will, the father of Mason McGahey, who is racing in the first round against Kyle Koretsky, whose father just purchased Maple Grove Raceway. Father's sons, father's daughters, it's all family here in the NHRA. Now let's check out some highlights for the first round of Pro Stock Eliminator here in Bristol, Tennessee. Troy Coughlin Jr., Fernando Quadra Jr. lining up side by side. The Jegs.com Camaro, Corral Boots. The family business for Fernando Quadra Jr. Always solid on the starting line, it's Fernando Jr., but look at the sparks, Tony. This is a weird one for Troy Coughlin.
Yeah, it looked like it was a neck-and-neck race up until Troy Coughlin Jr. started to encounter some problems. And anytime you see sparks like that are lighter colored, it's typically titanium that is in the bell housing area. Even though we see a lot of it up in the engine compartment, just goes to show you how violent this clutch explosion could have been.
Very tough deal there for Troy Coughlin Jr. He is eliminated. Fernando Quadra Jr. goes on. That is the Johnson's Horsepower Garage Camaro driven by Bo Butner, and that is Dallas Glenn, the Rad Torque System Chevrolet Camaro coming up here in the first round. The Johnson's Horsepower Garage in-car camera. We talked to Bo Butner a little bit during this week's E3 Sparkplugs and Cyclospedia about changes they've made to his car.
2017 Pro Stock World Champ Bo Butner made his return to the category here this year with a new sponsor in Johnson's Horsepower Garage and a new team for Bo, Conglomerate, a huge team in Elite Motorsports. They have 7 cars out here this weekend. I know this season hasn't been what you would want. You're expecting to win when you come out here, especially with a new sponsor. Hometown race for them. What have you guys done to kind of turn things around here?
Well, first of all, I have Jason Johnson behind me. Not only is a great sponsor, but a true friend. So he understands everything's new. The car's new, the team's new. We have tried, and it's not from a lack of effort, but like I've flown to Tulsa like 3 times and tested in the middle of weeks, which I've never done before. But no, they try hard here at Elite. They don't give up. So I think they had a pretty good meeting after Epping. And actually, the motor in this car right now came out of Erica's car from Epping. So all the races she has won, this is a motor. And when I say motor, it's the complete thing. It's not like they rod parts off and just put it in here, but it's a complete combination out of Erica's car. So it showed promise last night, but we also changed some things. The car's new. So all these cars being new, we don't know what type of material we use now. You don't know. Her car has 500 runs on it. It's in the groove. So I think between my car and the yellow car, these guys don't quit. We'll be fast.
That is a champion smile, and he has been there before as we watch both of these machines stage up. Dallas Glenn, the Gainesville winner. Butner seeking his first win with these JHG colors. That is a tough view of the Johnson's onboard camera, Tony.
Yeah, the reason for that is that starting line advantage. That is the trademark from Dallas Glenn. At least if Bo Butner has learned one thing, it's probably not the engine that has been their problem.
Matt Hartford, the Total Seal Piston Rings Camaro, coming to the end of its burnout. Hartford backing up, racing with some emotion this week. His longtime crew chief and very close friend Eddie Ganach is having some family issues going on at home, so they are racing with a lot of emotion as he has Derek Kramer, the Get Biofuel Camaro, backing up across the racetrack. The Kramer family out of Colorado. The man they know is KI bringing Matt Hartford in. It is really an interesting operation on the Hartford side. As much as it is a family operation for the Kramers, Hartford's whole crew is made up of very close friends.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, they expect to perform, and my personal warmest wishes out to Eddie Guinacci. I'm close personal friends with him, and I hope them the best.
riding with Matt as he jams his way through the 5-speed manual transmission in his Camaro. Derek Kramer at nearly 200's disadvantage on the starting line gives way to Hartford. 665.1 at 206, beating a 665.5 at 207 for Derek Kramer. So Matt Hartford starting to feel his oats a little bit here. Hartford going rounds this weekend. They have been few and far between this season. Could today be the day he strings together his most successful race? Greg Anderson, defending world champion, the beautiful red, white, blue Camaro backing up there, the HendrickCars.com machine, as we ride on board the Summit Racing Equipment onboard camera. Where has Greg Anderson been? That's been the question. He's 6 in the points right now, a 6-6 round record. He's lost in rounds 1 or 2 of 4 of the 6 races this year. We see a loss to Eric Anderson Pomona during the semis and a loss to Camry Caruso in the semis at Houston. But this is a guy that if you wonder where he's at, you don't usually have to worry long, because Greg Anderson's not one to wallow in his sorrows. Across the racetrack from Anderson, the Artisan Coffee-sponsored Camaro of Kenny Delco. We watch our Pro Stocker stage.
See right there with a quick reflex for Greg Anderson, and it appears that he also has the power.
He does have the power. 661.3, 206.51 miles an hour. The only Pro Stock car to run in this 660s range on every pass on the drag strip this weekend. He is in very good shape, and he outran Delco. Kyle Koretsky, Lucas Oil Camaro, taking on the always hard-leaving Mason McGahey, the Harlow Salmons of Odessa Camaro. Koretsky chomps off a big multi-hundredths advantage on the starting line and gives none of it back. 664.3 at 206, beating McGahey's 666.4 at 207. The Lucas Oil Camaro moves on. The Koretsky family recently purchased Maple Grove Raceway. It's going to be the home of the Pep Boys NHRA Nationals September 15th to the 18th. The historic track in Reading, Pennsylvania is an amazing place. The NHRA and Fox broadcast aligns with an NFL single-header Sunday on September 18th. To continue our Pro Stock discussions, let's go to the top end of Jamie Howe.
For Matt Hartford, that 665 with the 1 is best run of the weekend, but it's also your highest qualifying position of the season. You're finally starting to go some rounds here. What kind of a turning point has Bristol been for you so far?
It's been good so far. We started off on the right foot in Q1, which we haven't done all year. We made 3 good runs in qualifying. I've been driving a little bit better, which I've been saying I have to do. You know, we made a really nice run right there. You know, Derek's a hard opponent. We've lost to him as many times as we've won to him. But honestly, you know, the Total Seal car did a great job today. We got a lot more rounds to go, but this weekend's about my crew chief, Eddie Granacci, and his family. So, all to them.
And the emotion washing over Matt Hartford at the top end of the racetrack as Erica Enders on the E3 Sparkplug side lines up astride Christian Quadra on the Toyota side. Belling performance colors for Enders, the corral boots for Quadra. A rare miscue here for Quadra, who is one of the most fearsome reactors in the category. Was put to sleep by Eric Andrews. She goes a 663, outrunning his 667.
Well, Brian, if you have a good eye, if any of our viewers have a good eye, you can see that Christian Quadro went into stage, and then the car moved a little bit more. That may have done him in.
Aaron Stanfield trying to do in Wally Stroop, the chassis builder. Stroop gets up near the center line. He left with a 15 light, giving Stanfield something to think about, but treading out near the center line, he had to lift. 661.4 at 206 for Stanfield, who is looking to keep pace with Enders in the championship chase for Pro Stock Eliminator. We saw Mason McGahey. Now this is his dad, Chris McGahey, the Father's Day special, if you will, lining up next to Camry Caruso. The Sand Haulers of America Camaro with her dad and grandfather cheering her on. Left second, but finishes first with a strong 663.6.
Well, Brian, you can see the staging process, the pre-stage, and they stage very lightly, meaning they just roll that front tire into the stage beam because these cars are lightweight. They're very quick reacting machines because they rev them up to about 7,000 to 7,500 RPM at the launch.
They have a new car coming from a chassis builder, so look for that team to potentially be expanding. And the work is continuing instantly here, or intensely, I should say, in Ron Cap's pit area. A new engine going in, the other engine expiring in a Fireball. When we come back, Pro Stock Motorcycle. A Suzuki Spring is leading into what soon will be a Suzuki Summer in the Pro Stock Motorcycle category if things keep up as they are. These 4-cylinder, 4-valve powered motorcycles have dominated all comers in the category, and Matt Smith won the last event in Virginia, and he did it on a magical hole shot. Bruno Massel's with him in the pits.
The most recent winner in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Matt Smith. If you're riding this new Suzuki for you, I know it's been a challenge, but these bikes have shown a ton of potential. But you're winning in spite of the performance of this bike. How are you getting it done right now?
Yeah, we're just getting it done with hard work, determination. You know, we pressed our issue with Steve Johnson at Richmond and got a big hole shot on him. He outran us, but we got a big hole shot and won the race. Our problem right now is we don't have parts to build a second motor, so we can go test more to figure this clutch out. Clutch is our Achilles heel right now on the Suzuki. I can't 60 foot with all the top Suzuki guys that's been running this for 10 years now. This is my first year running this. We're close, but I'm off 3/460, and that parlays into 5/600ths on a quarter mile. And we're only behind 2 or 300ths in a quarter mile, but we got top speed with a Suzuki Q3 last session. So I think we're fine with power. We just got to figure the clutch out.
It is that small number, that small margin of precision that he needs to find. As now we see a woman who has found it, and Angelle Sampey, the winner last year at the first ever Pro Stock motorcycle race held at this drag strip over the course of its history, and she is currently flying here this weekend as well.
Not the quickest run, but a good setup run. A lot of these riders and machines that can get down the track are going to have very valuable data coming into this round.
They translated that 690 run into qualifying session 2 in slightly warmer conditions on a slightly greasier racetrack into even higher performance. You note the wiggle there in the center of the racetrack for Angelle. She picked up to a 687.4 at 196 miles an hour, and that placed her atop the field in her bespeckled leathers. She is down in the pits right now with Jamie Howe.
It's the second time this season we've seen Angelle Sampey start race day as the #1 qualifier, but through the first round of races, you've yet to make it out of the second round. I know you've been changing up your strategy a little bit this weekend. What impact do you think that's going to have on this race day?
Yeah, I'm changing a lot of things. Not only on the racetrack, but what's going on up in here. So I'm looking forward to a great day. It's an absolutely beautiful day. I'm feeling confident. I'm having fun. One particular reason is because my dad's here and it's Father's Day. My husband's here and, you know, he's the father to my children. So what a great day to celebrate fathers. To all the fathers out there, I hope you guys have a blessed day. And I'm going to be back here working my butt off to get this Vance & Hines Mission Suzuki in the winner's circle. And I'm hoping it's going to be against my teammate, Eddie.
We'll find out if she can parlay that into victory as we take a look at our top 5 in points. We look at raw power versus reaction time, meaning a racer like Steve Johnson, who has won more rounds than anybody, has left first 6 out of the 13 attempts he's made at the starting line for a 46% average of leaving first. But he's only ranked 6th, meaning he's winning his races on power. We look at other racers like Matt Smith. He's only left 3 times ahead of 10 opponents. He's left ranked 10th in the class, but one of those victories he got was that hole shot win in Virginia. This is a study in both the human side of drag racing and the mechanical side of drag racing. And the last line down there, Chris Bostic leaves 80% first. Unfortunately for him, he's only 11th in the points. He needs horsepower. Let's take a look at our Lucas Oil competition ladder in Pro Stock Motorcycle. And Tony, this class will be giving us fits and starts today. We have some young riders and a lot of experienced professionals.
Well, of course, you want to pick a favorite. Take a look at what they did on Saturday in the first qualifying session, because coincidentally, that is going to be like the first round conditions. And Angelle, of course, was the quickest bike in that session.
Now let's give some round 1 highlights here for Pro Stock Motorcycle. We see Ryan Ayler lined up next to Jimmy Underdahl. Underdahl, the better qualified motorcycle by 1 position, but a 001 red line. Ryan Ayler, yet another one of these racers that has just needed something to break his way, and he finally got one.
I like the Pro Stock car. These bikes are very quick reacting, a little over 600 pounds, including the rider. And at the launch, these drivers get a little too amped up. Well, it could turn bad for them.
Carrying those VitaCShot.com colors on the rear fender. It's time for Angie Smith to line up with Malcolm Phillips Jr. Malcolm Phillips Jr. is the nephew of Michael Phillips, a longtime NHRA Pro Stock motorcycle competitor. His first qualifying national event is over quickly, but he acquitted himself nicely. He rode the motorcycle well. He was 25, run 703, but her 009 682 was in another league.
Yeah, where did that come from for Angie Smith? The warmer conditions that we had all weekend long, and she runs quicker.
Eddie Krawick and Jerry Savoie. Savoie, the White Alligator Racing Team out of Louisiana, taking on the Vance & Hines machine out of Indianapolis. And Jerry Savoie wins on a hole shot. 034 light to Eddie's 054. The Camping World hole shot camera shows us about a wheel width to get the job done at the finish line stripe. Matt Smith was supposed to race Chris Bostic. Bostic unfortunately suffered mechanical issues during qualifying, unable to make the call. So what we call a competition single in drag racing, when your assigned opponent cannot make it to the starting line, went to Matt Smith. 697.1 at 194.55 miles an hour. Matt Smith advances. Doesn't show us a whole lot on the performance side, though. Ron Torno and Steve Johnson. Tony, the underlying story here was last year Torno upset Steve Johnson in round 1, but it didn't go for him this way again.
Well, one thing about these races, they have very good memories. I'm sure that's one of the things that Steve Johnson was thinking about as he pulled to the starting line.
Ron left within 3 thou, but Johnson's bike nearly 0.2 of a second quicker, a 688, beating Torno's 707. Joey Gladstone and Jenna Ibaristo. 0.37 reaction time for Gianna. Joey Gladstone, of course, a 47 light within 100th of her. And Gianna runs 7:22.9 in the losing effort as Joey goes 6:88.2 at 192. Joey came on very strong late in qualifying, and if he can maintain the starting line presence, he may well be a factor later in the day. Battle of the Bayou, Angel and Ellie Tonglet. Angel, the defending champion here. A little wiggle mid-course on that motorcycle, but nothing to be concerned with. She outruns Tonglet handily, 686.6, beating Tonglet 693.1.
Ellie, a lot like L.E. Braun, had the worst view in the house.
Karen Stouffer and Mark Ingwersen. Ingwersen leads on Karen, 31 to her 43. And Mark Ingwersen is going to drive away from Stouffer. Ingwersen, 693.5, 193. This man has the best motorcycle he's had in his career. He went rounds at Gainesville. He went rounds at Virginia. And Mark Ingwersen is going rounds here in Bristol. He'll race Matt Smith in round 2. It'll be Angel and Ryan Ayler on that top of the left side. Then it's Joey Gladstone, Jerry Savoy. And finally, Steve Johnson and Angie Smith. The Johnson-Smith family feud will continue in front of God and everybody here. This is the Napa Toyota team. They are just about ready to fire their engine and warm up that 11,000 horsepower Hemi after having to strip the car bare and rebuild it in about 1 hour between rounds after suffering the explosion. Antron Brown's team is on the move to the staging lanes. He will be on the attack for round 2. And Brittany Forrest, as always, signing autographs. Her flavor-packed top fueler is running on me, and we'll see her when we come back. The work going hot and heavy in the pit area here. What we see are people that have been hired through the NHRA-Launch.com website. It is a place where if you want to get a job in professional drag racing on any level, you can do that. People at DSR like Ryan Labb and Dustin Goebel, Mike Guzzo, people that work in hospitality, Rich Vargas that actually works on the Top Fuel car, and this man, Jagger Slats, who works for Lex June's Top Fuel team doing the clutch, was hired off of NHRA-Launch.com. It is a place that if you want to work at your local racetrack, chances are this job's open. You want to work in a Top Fuel car, chances are this job's open there as well. Check out our K&N Key storylines. Veteran racers shake off a rough start. Antron Brown, Leah Pruitt, Matt Harford, and Greg Anderson all advanced to round 2 after kind of wallowing for weeks in the early stages of despair. We now look at our Top Fuel ladder for round 2. Salinas and Langton, Brown and Force, Pruitt and Torrance, and finally Ashley and Foley. And this Matco Tools Lucas Oil Hangsterfer's Top Fuel dragster of Antron Brown is in a decently unfamiliar place here. Second time where he has been in the first time he's made the second round since Vegas. Bruno, what more do you have?
Antron told me that the success they're having so far this weekend all came from going right off the trailer to a 380. Gave them the luxury of trying to test some things to find out what didn't work in qualifying, and they're hoping they can be learned from that here because they're going to need a little more performance against Brittany.
No other racer has had Brittany's number more than Antron Brown. Can he have it again? Brittany smokes the tires. Antron's got cylinders on. He's going to the first semifinal of his season. 393.0, 305.36 miles an hour. And now maybe the time for Mike Salinas to assume the points lead in Top Fuel Eliminator.
Well, Brian, and thanks to Antron Brown, Mike Salinas can have the luxury, but look at the tires and take a look at how they bobble and they start to rattle, they start to shake. The disadvantage for the driver this early in the run is they really don't anticipate it. They've just launched close to 3 Gs. It'll accelerate to as much as 6 Gs, about to the 8th mile, but you can see her ahead of Antron Brown. But take a look at the tire pattern directly behind the car. It's black tracking. That means they have an excessive amount of wheel speed. And of course, once the tire starts slipping with this kind of power, it doesn't stop.
Tony, we talk about that tire slippage. This racing surface is now up to 136 degrees, the hottest we have seen by far all season long. Justin Ashley, the Phillips Connect VitaCShot.com Top Fuel dragster, sitting with his crew chief, Mike Green, making the last-second adjustments on the engine. Across the racetrack is Doug Foley. Foley made it through his first round, pairing with Clay Milligan by running, well, about 470. Ashley ran a very strong 382. Foley's hanging in there. It is It's going to be Ashley, though. 391.7 at 293. Foley runs a 394.2 at 311. They stepped it up big, but Justin Ashley, 71 on the tree, gave nothing much back there, and then runs a 91.
This team has really come to life when it matters the most. On Sunday, they came to life in the first round. They come in as the number 14 qualifier, beat the favorite in the first round, and they were locked down. Now, Doug Foley was hanging in there long enough to make it a close race, but no mistakes early in the run for Justin Ashley.
Next up in top fuel, you've got the two quickest cars squaring off from the first round eliminations. Number 1 qualifier Mike Salinas taking on a resurgent Sean Langdon. Talking with Sean Langdon's crew chief Kurt Elliott earlier this weekend about the consistency of performance this car has found. He said over the past month we had struggled. There was no doubt about it. It came down to the fact that the clutch assembly that they had, they just couldn't get a handle on it. Rather than keep trying to beat their heads against the wall to try and do the same thing and get the same result, they had to go outside the box, and the outside of the box thinking thus far has worked for this team.
It has worked for Mike Salinas' team as well. What a throwdown, and it's going to be Langdon on a huge hole shot. 385.3 at 318. Langdon just took Salinas to the dry cleaners on the starting line at 57, like to Mike's 105. The quicker car of 381.6 loses simply because he spotted Sean Langdon about a half a tenth.
This is what you call a two-piece meal deal right off of the starting line. You know, Mike Salinas, that quick time that he ran in the first round was pretty scary. I mean, he was 0.05 of a second quicker. So Sean Langdon has that to think about between rounds, but he's going to think about that anyway. He was very good off the starting line. A little bit late was Mike Salinas, and that is all that it took. You can see Mike Salinas driving around again, but that's not what cost him. This race was all Sean Langdon right from the start.
A beautiful run there for that DHL CMR roofing team. Now we go to Jamie Howe to talk to a very happy Antron Brown.
Antron Brown got the win light, but it was not a perfect run. There was a hole out early. You told your team you felt it vibrating. How do you make those decisions in such split second times?
James, I didn't see Brittany around us, and they've been, they've been killing it. And the thing about it is, I didn't hear her around me. I said, I got to stick with it, and she held to the finish line, and thank God. Goes prayers up there, but we made it down. We're in the semifinals. How about that Macro Lucas Oil team? We're coming.
Leah is hoping to have the same feeling at the top end of the racetrack. She wearing the Mobile Oil colors this weekend as crew chief Neil Strasbaugh waves her in, seeking her first semifinal appearance of the season, but she has Mr. Steve Torrence to contend with. The 4-time and defending world champion does not typically give up ground easy. She was slightly better than on the starting line, but he's going to be better at the finish. A 389.1 at 315 miles an hour stops Leah's 396.0 at 306.74. And Tony, the numbers began to bear out very quickly. The starting line was even Steven, but that car was moving very early.
Yeah, it really becomes a chess match with the tuners. I mean, the drivers, they're going to rely on them in the event the car loses traction, but the culprit in this race is only 7 cylinders for Leah right at the start. That allowed Steve Torrence to pull away in pretty much every increment on the racetrack.
Sean Langdon will take on Antron Brown, the 9 and 4 qualifiers, and Justin Ashley out of the 14th spot will take on number 2 qualifier Steve Torrence. The final 4 and top fuel is set, and we're going to be coming back with Nitro Funny Cars. And yes, Ron Capps and his team of merry men have gotten this car reassembled from the ground up in an hour, and they will be in the staging lanes when we return. Whether you come for the speed, they blast off the history.
It is Don Garlick's by less than a garlic.
Or the high stakes. Every round is sudden death overtime. There is no second chances. Find what you're looking for with the 24/7 NHRA channel free on the Roku channel and Tubi. Hear all the stories, get all the past races, all the way down to the finish line. Do it all for free. The 24/7 NHRA channel free on the Roku channel, Tubi or Plex, and these streaming platforms. You can consume NHRA content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Of course, if you head to our 24/7 channels, you can see past races that we've aired on NHRA and Fox and FS1, our historic races back to the 1950s. And this is free on Tubi, the Roku channel 249. Apps like Plex and Sports.tv and other streaming platforms and services will be coming online as well. There's also NHRA.tv. If you really love sportsman drag racing, you want to see every run made down the racetrack from the beginning of qualifying to the end of Sunday afternoon, you can get yourself a subscription to NHRA.tv and see it all. Now our funny car ladder. The 8 remaining cars are 8 strong ones on the starting line right now. Tim Wilkerson and Chad Green. So Wilkerson and Green as part of a 2-car alliance. Tim Wilkerson aids a lot in the tuning here. His son Dan Wilkerson is the crew chief of record for Chad Green. The Levi Ray and Shout Mustang carrying support from Summit Racing Equipment, Diversified Yacht Services, and others. There is Daniel Wilkerson, son of the driver in the other lane. Wilkerson running back with his palms up, and it does sound like one of these cars is idling high, and that car may be Chad Green's, which is normally not a good thing coming off the starting line. Immediately blows the tires off. Wilkerson's way up by the center line. If he had crossed, which it does not appear he did, he would have been disqualified. 482.3, 194. Tony, it's never a good sign when the crew chief runs away from the car with his palms facing the sky.
Well, for Chad Green, it started on the burnout, and he actually backed up really fast. The problem is when they lifted the body, the team really didn't have time to lower the idle, and that seemed to, it's going to do several things. It's going to build additional temperature in the clutch. That'll make it more aggressive. That's never good. It'll build excessive temperature in the motor. If it does that, well, it's going to make a little more power. But more than anything, the engine idle should be set at X. And if it's 200 or 300 RPM more, well, you're going to have that much more power on the starting line on a warm day like this with a marginal track. You do not want that. And, of course, Tim Wilkerson had the discipline to get off the throttle, not knowing exactly where Chad Green was.
Tim Wilkerson flirted with the center line in the first round. Alexis DeJoria flirted with a wall, but she came just close enough, didn't touch anything. Takes his Rocket Phones Bandero Premium Tequila GR Supra into the next round as the body comes down. Our Toyota onboard camera showing the steering, the butterfly style steering wheel in this car, the handbrake that she's going to operate. Alexis DeJoria, probably her most memorable round against Matt Hagan, was the one that sealed the championship for Ron Capps last season at Pomona. Hagan does not want a repeat of that in his True Harvest Dodge.
Brian, of course, these shorter wheelbase funny cars, we saw some of the top fuel dragsters spinning the tire, even more adjustments because of the shorter wheelbase, and it mostly seems to be down track. You won't see any new tires on these cars. You'll see, if anything, a taller tire reduces slippage as well as the used tire.
Hagan smokes the tires. He's pedaling to no avail. It will be Alexis DeJoria. 406.8 at 317 miles an hour, and we're almost seeing history repeat itself. This car is going down the racetrack just as it did last year when she won this race.
Brian, we talked about this at the top of the show. All the high-powered cars that run good when the track is 100%, they may not be here late in the day. It's the masters, the guys that have the discipline, that can manage the clutch. You can see Matt Hagan doing what a driver does, trying to fix the tune-up. There it is, slipping the tire, getting the tire loose. He's off the throttle, opening those throttle blades, giving it full throttle again. But again, in the other lane, smooth and steady. Beating him with consistency is Alexis.
And Alexis again hanging in on the starting line. We watch her. A smooth cruise down this drag strip. A lot of steering input there at the end of the run. 406.8 moves her ahead. For the 115th time, Cruz Pedregon and John Forrest take up arms against each other on the starting line here in Nitro Funny Car. E3 spark plug side for Pedregon, Toyota side for John Forrest. Daniel Hood, his son-in-law and crew chief on this Nitro Funny Car, facing across to John Collins, who stands as the crew chief for Cruz Pedregon. Forrest comes into this round having run 413. Pedregon having run 414. Let's watch these two masters of the starting line use the starting line to their advantage. They both shoved it in there. Cruz has cylinders out, and John Forrest cruises to another round win. 409.6 at 300 miles an hour. The count now stands at 78-37 in the Forrest versus Cruz career battle.
You know, Brian, we're talking about the temperature. We're talking about the racetrack. It's really not that hot. I mean, it's only 77 degrees, but, you know, this track just didn't take a lot of rubber. And there's John Forrest laying down a good one. Cruz, the Snap-on team, they've been waiting for these conditions where they have a marginal track. They feel that they could have an advantage. But as soon as that cylinder quits firing, it's lights out. The day's over. And there's John Forrest right there. Both of them pretty good off of the starting line. And look, John Forrest puts pants on just like everybody else. But when he has his pants on, he is winning championships.
There it is, Tony, the culprit for Cruz Pedregon. That raw fuel coming out like a garden sprayer as the car goes down the racetrack. And that's a garden sprayer that costs you about 1,000 horsepower.
Last pair here in Funny Car, it is the #1 qualifier Robert Hyde taking on the world champion Ron Capps. And Capps and his Napa team had a struggle to get back up here in time. They came in hot when Capps strapped inside the car because of the explosion he had in the first round. A lifter failure caused them to level the top half of the motor and damage the body on that car. Thankfully for them, Chad Green had an issue, gave him a little bit more time because they're using every minute of it back in the pits, or back in the staging lanes, I should say, to make final adjustments.
we have seen that veteran crew pull off some miracles before. We'll see if they got another one here. Ron Capps is going to go to the semifinals. 4:03.1 at 319 miles an hour. Height's prediction of 3-second runs did not come to fruition. Neither did his race day plans.
Brian, that would be Jason Bourne. To get down a racetrack like this and run a 4:03, and you look at the first round performance for Ron Capps, he was the quickest. Now, Robert Height had run that 4:08, didn't really get to the finish line, but this is clutch management. This is how you negotiate a track. You can see the tires slipping. You can see the black tracks. The car is leaving. It did scrub a little bit of the mile an hour off, but 319 miles an hour, it almost seems like they are doing it with ease.
Low ET of race day for Ron Capps, and the reassembled Napa Toyota will take on Alexis DeJoria. Then it'll be Wilkerson and Force. 4 seasoned veterans in the semifinal round of Nitro Funny Car. As we watch one more time, the Auto Club Chevrolet Camaro Robert Height spin the tires, put cylinders out, and coast to a round loss. We'll be back with Pro Stock. Welcome back to the NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals in Bristol, Tennessee. Brian Loans and Tony Pedregon in the booth. Bruno Massel and Jamie Howe reporting from around the drag strip. And if you're celebrating Father's Day or Juneteenth or both today, thank you for spending part of your Sunday afternoon with us. Some very highly entertaining drag racing. Family, friends, sun, and fun is what it's all about here this weekend. And we move into Pro Stock round 2. We see Stanfield and Quadra going to battle. Koretsky, Anderson, Caruso, Glenn, and Enders Hartford will be hitting lead off in round 2. And so this matchup between Eric Enders and Matt Hartford in the Total Seal Piston Rings Camaro Toyota side. Milling Performance Machine for Enders E3 spark plug side. Going to ride on the roof with Matt Hartford. A 5,000ths advantage off the starting line. A brutal side-by-side Pro Stock race, but it is going to be Eric. A 666.8 beats a 668.9.
What was 200ths of a second Matt needed to make up based on their first round performance. He was able to get a little bit on the starting line, but not enough power.
Cameron Caruso, Sandhaulers of America Camaro, the Rad Torque Systems machine of Dallas Glenn closest to us. And this is another brilliant set of reaction times, but Caruso's car appeared to not want to shift into the next gear. A 10 light and a 668 to move Dallas ahead.
Yeah, good reaction time for Camry. Was not far off from Dallas Glenn, but you can hear her car. It was on the rev limiter. That means it was revving up, maybe excessive tire slippage early in the run.
Aaron Stanfield, E3 spark plug side. Mr. Quadra right side, and Quadra red lights his way out of competition. Fernando Quadra Jr. 048 red light start with Eric Stanfield 049 green. 664.1 low ET of this round so far at 207. Let's talk to Dallas Glenn. He is with Jamie Howe.
Dallas Glenn advancing on to the semifinals. Unfortunately for him, he will face off against Erica Enders, who's won the last 3 national events. She also has lane choice with her 60-60 or 68. What do you need to do in the semis?
I think I just need to go up there and keep doing what I've been doing. I've been driving real good today. I feel really good. And plus, I got my Bo Butner good luck charm right there in the window. I got my lucky shark, so I'm going to keep that thing in there, and hopefully we can get the job done in the next one.
Shark, I guess it's less weird than a rabbit's foot. As we look now at Greg Anderson and Kyle Koretsky. Lucas Oil Camaro for Koretsky. Anderson, the HendrickCars.com Camaro. Wow, big disparity here. That summer onboard camera's giving a tough look to Anderson. And there you have it, another whole shot loss for Greg and a whole shot win for Koretsky. 014 to his 50 light for Greg. A 667 beats a 665.
Well, Kyle making his dad proud. He knew he had some performance to make up and got it right off the starting line.
Anderson has had a preponderance of losses this season on whole shots. It has to smart even more this weekend when he was so quick. Stanfield and Koretsky. Glenn and Enders. Now let's talk to Kyle Koretsky with Jamie Howe.
Kyle Koretsky just took out the defending Pro Stock champion Greg Anderson, only to face off against our #1 qualifier Aaron Stanfield in the semifinals. He will have lane choice. What kind of a difference does that make here?
Huge. Lane choice is huge, and I knew our team would put together a good package. I knew I'd let that clutch foot out. But for Lucas Oil, Rob's Automotive, KPK Development, this is awesome. Living my dream.
Kyle Koretsky is living his dream on to that semifinal round. Tony, let's talk about the anatomy of a Top Fuel or a funny car turnaround.
Well, once the car gets into the pits, you can see the stages. They have to get the car up on jacks. They're going to disassemble the top end of the engine. At the same time, there's someone on the bottom. They're going to evaluate the engine bearings, the cranks, the stress cracks on the crankshaft, while at the same time the clutch disassembly. All of these things are taking place. This car will enter the pits and see startup within the first 40 minutes.
That's this week's peak. Did you know? And I bet you already did know. It is a lot of work. We now get a look here at the Antron Brown pit area, the Lucas Oil pit cam. Calm, cool, collected, measured, and basically prepared for the semifinal round of Top Fuel action is Antron's team. Matt Hartford has had himself a good race week, and it came short of what he wanted, but ultimately some progress shown by this team. As we look back at his Total Seal Piston Ring onboard season recap in Phoenix, you can see that Greg Anderson jumped out to a significant lead. Hartford started not performing to the level they wanted at this early part of the year. The in-car look there for Hartford as he completed the run. Then we move to Houston. At the Houston race, looking back at Matt shifting through those gears, he did see a little improvement here, advancing on to round number 2, finding a little bit more accuracy in the tune-up, both on the chassis side and the engine side. And then today, a tough loss to Eric Anders. Tony, sometimes in this class, you just don't have enough.
Well, these cars are so finely tuned, it's so precision, everything matters, and you're not looking for 100, 200 RPM, or rather horsepower. You can gain 2 or 3 or 4 horsepower. That is the only thing that they're lacking right now.
So Matt Hartford is retired for the afternoon. Steve Torrence is still in competition, seeking his first win of this 2022 season. You think these guys are worried about it? Not a chance. When we come back, the action at the Thunder Valley Nationals continues and the intensity ramps up. This is a fantastic look at the new NHRA Speed for All video game, which will allow you to drive Top Fuel dragsters, nitro funny cars, pro stockers, pro modifieds, even build your career from a sportsman racer into a pro. You want to tune the race car? Go for it. You want to race as a famous competitor? You can do that too. You want to build your own career and become a pro racer? Yes. How about racing your friends? Feel free. We'd love for you to. It's a great new way to experience NHRA drag racing, and order your copy today on NHRAvideogame.com, available on a multitude of platforms. We get a look at our Round 2 ladder and pro stock motorcycles, some compelling matchups, and motorcycles that have negotiated a hot racetrack very well. Now let's catch up on this week's Suzuki Science of Speed, a great rider on an unfamiliar motorcycle. Ellie Tonglet may not have escaped round 1, but he was on this bike for a good reason.
Kelly Klontz has announced that she will step off of the motorcycle for the next couple of races as she deals with a personal health issue, but they still need to get a rider on the bike. So how far did she have to look? Not very far. She found Ellie Tonglet. You've known the Tonglet family for years, so it made perfect sense. Now, within weight, you guys are just ounces of each other, but there's 5 inches in height difference between Kelly and Ellie Tonglet. Ellie, what did you have to change on this motorcycle to fit you?
As far as the changes, they're very minute. You know, all we did was we had to move the clutch lever a little bit and actually move the shifter button a little bit. But other than that, it's just like our bike, and it should rock and roll.
Now, this bike that you're riding this weekend, it's very different than the bike, Kelly, that you've ridden all season. Vance and Hines went through it with a fine-tooth comb. What changes did they make?
So Vance and Hines, last year they went ahead and put fuel injection on it, and we're running the 4-valve program. So they've been working with that. It's new out here. So they've had it for 4 weeks. So they've had it since Virginia, and they've made all kinds of different changes. And I'm excited because I know Ellie, he's going to bring his A game, and he's going to go really fast this weekend.
So Ellie Tonglet will be on that motorcycle again next week. Now we go to our Round 2 highlights. Steve Johnson, the USA Electric Suzuki closest to us. The V-twin powered Buell of Angie Smith, the Denso machine across the racetrack. The war of words and bruised feelings amongst the Smiths and the Johnsons continues. And the feelings bruised here are those of Steve Johnson. Check out Angie Smith.
Steve may want to take some of that back. Not only does she get off the starting line ahead of him, but she lowers her quick elapsed time of the meet by 0.07 of a second.
And now the wheelie bar camera brought to us by Denso in the back of Matt Smith's motorcycle. The onboard here looking back at Matt as he is hunkered down atop his beautiful Suzuki. Across the racetrack is Mark Ingerson, whose story we've documented. He has come on very strong. He's always been a good lever. He just hasn't quite had competitive horsepower, and that all changed in 2022. And it changed for the worse for Matt Smith. Smith because Mark Ingerson just flat outran him. 689.4 at 194. Smith runs a 698.5 at 195, and Ingerson is heading to a semifinal round. Jerry Savoie and Joey Gladstone now. The J&A service machine left side. The White Alligator Racing machine is Jerry Savoie closest to. Tony, a 002 light for the experienced Savoie.
Well, it was Jerry's race, not a gamble. I mean, Jerry Savoie, once upon a time, was very good off the starting line. Has had some bad spots in his career, not as active as he was when he won the championship.
Now it is Ryan Ayler, lined up next to Angel Sampé. The Vance & Hines Mission Suzuki E3 spark plug side. VitaCShot.com fuel for Ayler. Ayler's motorcycle pushing toward the center line. He lifts. Angel was solid on the tree. Even more solid at the top end of 690 at 194.8 miles an hour. And we see Ryan Ayler's 10 flat as he coasted to the finish line. So that sets up a semifinal round in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Angel Sampé and Mark Ingerson, Jerry Savoie and Angie Smith. A good sampling of different styles of motorcycles, and certainly one we are excited to watch. Ingerson and Smith come in with lane choice.
Angie Smith advancing on to the semifinals for the first time since March back at the Gator Nationals, but it comes on a day where you were low of the first round of eliminations. You bettered it there with an 80. What was been the turning point for this team?
You know, we've been more determined than ever, and my daddy always wanted to come to Bristol with me, and I lost him in November, and this one's for my daddy. This one's for Tommy, my crew guy. He's at home battling an issue too. My whole team, they have, been behind me, and they've gave me a great motorcycle, and we're going to try to win this race for my daddy.
The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Toyota. Let's go places.
We are back here at Bristol Dragway. Beautiful, pastoral, and calming scenes as we now head back into the pit area. The PetBoys.com display. Giving away a lot of t-shirts this weekend, getting fans into the interactive exhibits, whether it's the slot car drag racing where Robert Hype just took down J.R. Todd, or maybe you get a sketch made. The artist was working overtime this weekend, getting great caricature art done in the pit area. We are now back to semifinal action in Top Fuel Eliminator, which will pit Justin Ashley and Steve Torrence against each other on one side of the ladder, Antron Brown and Sean Langdon against each other on the other side of the ladder. Bruno Massel has more on Justin Ashley.
You know, Brian, what seems never ceases to amaze me is where these cars come from. Justin Ashley, the number 14 qualifying spot, a guy in a team that really was scratching their head after 2 qualifying sessions. But believe it or not, a near miss in that last session, a 397 at only 252 mile an hour, gave them a baseline to tune off of. Obviously, it was enough of a baseline to advance them this far. Do they have enough, though, to take out that juggernaut team in Steve Torrence?
Looking to make their second race final in a row. They made the final round at Epping and lost to Mike Salinas. On the other side, though, it's Steve Torrence, and he is hungry as anybody for a win.
Well, the tricky area seems to be down track. If the cars can get beyond 200, 300, 400 feet, you have to slip the clutch, not spin the tires near the end of the finish line.
Justin Ashley way out on Torrence, and he's not going to give it back. 381.6, 323 mile an hour. The Bristol crowd reacts to Ashley's win light. Torrence goes 387.3 to 319, and Steve Torrence rolled the car in. We watched him stage, and the car was almost continuously rolling, a 140 light.
Well, either the brakes started to fail, or maybe he was doing that intentionally, but on the starting line, that was like Michael giving Fredo the kiss of death. Because you're playing catch-up if you're Steve Torrence. When you allow Justin Ashley to get off of the starting line with that kind of advantage, you can only hope that he makes a mistake. But within the first 300 feet, Justin Ashley was quicker by 0.03 of a second and continued to accelerate, making a very good run, one of the best runs under these conditions.
Another final round for the Phillips Connect top fueler of Justin Ashley, and now a big one. Sean Langdon and Antron Brown. One of the most unique parts of this semifinal round in Top Fuel Drag Racing is every one of these racers has won in a different category. Antron Brown has won on Pro Stock motorcycles. The Summit onboard camera showing his crew there. Sean Langdon has won a world championship in Super Comp. He is in the final round of Super Comp at this very race. He's trying to do something that only a handful of racers have ever done, which is to win a professional and sportsman category at the same event. Shades of Pat Austin back in the day. And we look down and see that CMR Roofing Top Fuel dragster inching ahead. On the E3 spark plug side, Toyota side for Antron Brown. within 2,000. Brown's car, Water gets Langdon going to the final round. Wow, 384.7, 317 miles an hour, a 389.6, a 307 for Brown. Sean Langdon heads into career final number 36.
Well, we talked about this and these conditions and what they did, the work they did on the track, and the effect that it had on the racetrack is really tailor-made for both of these cars. However, the better run, once again, was in that left lane. It was Sean Langdon just propelling himself away from Antron.
Langdon's dad also a national event winner over the course of his drag racing career, so it could be an incredible Father's Day celebration for the Langdon family. There are now 2 Wallies on the line for Sean Langdon this afternoon. As we watch one more time the CMR Roofing and Construction DHL Fueler run down, we watch again from the back of Antron's car in the Summit onboard camera. You saw his car spinning the tires late in the run. Now let's go to the top end. Jamie Howe is with Justin Ashley.
It'll be an all Toyota final for Top Fuel Eliminator when we get there for Justin Ashley, advancing on to his back-to-back final round appearance. But you are an 80 at the tree. Your average is in the 60s. How do you step it up against Langdon?
Well, I have no choice, right? I mean, that's the beautiful part about this sport, though. It's such a team effort. Our entire Phillips Connect team, for everybody at Toyota, Vita C Energy, Kato, Autoshocker, Lucas Oil, we're doing this together as one unit, so we have to continue to pick each other up. Just so proud of Mike Green, Tommy Delago, and these boys. I know Antron just bowed out, but they had a great weekend as well, so looking forward to an awesome final round. It'll be a lot of fun.
And now it is time for Funny Car Eliminator semifinal round action. John Force, the left side of your screen, the Peak Blue Def Chevrolet Camaro, and the Levi Range Mustang of Tim Wilkerson. John Force leads career 44-23 against Wilkerson. But Tim Wilkerson, as we have said so many times, is cagey and dangerous, especially when you back him into a corner like this. John Force smokes the tires. Wilkerson's going to the final. They love it here in Bristol. 4:13.5, 306.67 miles an hour. Now there is some stuff floating around down there. He may have just grazed, if he grazed that signboard that we saw Alexis get earlier. He's fine. We're going to watch again, Tony. He got way over there.
Well, for starters, Tim Wilkerson had a lot of real estate to make up early. You could see John Force get off of the mark. Luckily for Tim, John lost traction. You can see that Tim Wilkerson did almost exactly what Alexis did earlier. The car put a cylinder out, darted the car to the wall, and it appeared to be decal material or paint that was coming off the wall. No contact.
Bruno's got more on Tim.
You know, Brian, back in the pits, I was surprised for Tim Wilkerson to tell me that he thought the car was underpowered, and that's why he limped down the racetrack there in the second round. He told me he was going to get off the defensive and get on the offensive, and that's exactly what he did just there.
Wow, great information there. Now let's go to the top end of the racetrack with Sean Langdon. Jamie Howe's with him. Sean Langdon, rather.
And as Sean Langdon advances on to his first final round of 2022, there's still a chance for the double up here at a national event. Sean, what goes through your mind knowing that you've got 2 finals coming up?
Try not to think about it. Last round was pretty hectic. Fortunately, still in 2 categories, plays a little bit of havoc on me. We're getting ready to warm up, and on my phone, they're calling me for super comp to the lanes, and I'm looking at the guys. They're looking at me like, hey, you got to make a decision. But fortunately, the guys, man, the CMR group has done a fantastic job getting the turnaround on the car, and Jason and Kurt and Connie, they've given me a great race car today on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to my dad out there. And man, I would say I'd be happy with one, but I'm not gonna lie, I want them both.
You have to be greedy in drag racing, and that's the type of greed that pays off as we now see Alexis DeJoria, the Pandero Premium Tequila Rocket Phones Toyota GR Supra. Across the racetrack is Ron Capps. Ron Capps, after the Epping race, got fairly annoyed with a story he saw on NHRA.com that talked about the funny car race being only about 2 cars. Well, he used that as some bulletin board material with his team between races, and Tony, it appears to have paid off.
It paid off in a big way. They were the quickest car in the first round. They were the quickest car in the second round. Almost to the point when you have 300-400s on the field, really their race to lose right now.
A massive starting line advantage for Capps. And the Napa Toyota's going to the final round. 4:01.6, 318 miles an hour. Alexis runs 4:05, 321. And Ron Capps, the guy who made me step back and watch the Hagen and Heights slugfest get after each other is now back in the ring.
Well, whatever they did, I would do again after this race because they seem to be the heavy favorite going into the final round. And we mentioned earlier, it seems to be effortless. We're looking at other cars that are pulling the clutch back, and when they do that, you take some of the load off the motor. They're dropping cylinders, they're spinning the tires. Not this Napa car. It is going down the track as if this is an extremely good racetrack.
So Ron Capps by more than a car length at a speed of 318 miles an hour will go to the final round after a day that he was on fire to start the morning. When we come back, it'll be time for Pro Stock and Pro Stock Motorcycle.
The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Pep Boys Auto Service and Tires. We go further to help you go farther.
Sunday mornings at the NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series means Steelmaster Track Walk. The fans are allowed to go out on the racing surface to experience for themselves the attractive nature of a fully prepared drag strip, especially one that's been leveled and ground recently. This was a massive, massive track walk, expanding all the way to the 8th mile, full of people. A great morning, a great way to start the day with Dad. Now let's go to the top end. It's Ron Capps and Jamie Howe.
When Ron Capps saw that he ran a 4:01, he said, in this heat, you've got to be kidding me. Low of eliminations. You were low in every round so far today. We have a string of summer races coming up. What has the team been able to figure out in the heat?
Well, we got a lot of our NASCAR buddies watching right now. They got the weekend off, and this, I know they're going to ask me, this is like their Darlington, their Southern 500, I think it's called, where it just demands every bit of every inch of your driver, your team. To go down the track and run 4:01 like that, 318 is pretty phenomenal. That explosion we had, thank you Toyota for coming up with all the safety. It's a bitchiness looking body. I tell you, that Supra is so clean looking, but the safety factor is what saved me. So great job, Napa guys.
Ron smiling. That's a funny car driver. You're on fire 1 minute, you're smiling the next. It's a very manic way to live your life. Now we're going to talk about the Pro Stock category. We look at our semifinal round matchup here. Stanfield will take on Koretsky, and Dallas Glenn will take on Eric Enders. Could be all elite, could be all KB, or a mix of both. And there is Eric Enders, Mark Ingersoll, son of the legendary Buddy Ingersoll, one of the great door slammer racers of all time, competed in the 1980s with a turbocharged Buick at this very racetrack, stirred up big time controversy with how fast that car was. Mark giving some very clear direction to Erica in the Melling Performance Camaro in Dallas Glenn. His father at the door of his machine, the Rad Torque Systems Camaro. Erica seeking to maintain this position she has. More than a 100-point lead on the field, trying to grow that even. E3 spark plug side for Erica, Dallas Glenn Toyota side. If there is one driver in this field that can stand toe-to-toe with her on this piece of ground, it is Dallas Glenn. And maybe that's not even enough today. Erica 0-14 on the tree, chalk up another win light. Relentless, 665.7, 205.98. I don't know how you stop this, Tony. I just don't.
Well, there were two problems with that run. You know, it seemed like Dallas Glenn changed up his staging procedure a little bit, which is completely within the rules and his option. It seemed like he took his time going into stage, which is perfectly fine. But when you come off the starting line second against Erica, you better hope that your team found some power. And he's consistently been about 0.02 of a second slower in qualifying here on Sunday during eliminations, and she was able to maintain both, getting off the line better, having a little more power on the track.
One more look at it. These Pro Stock engines are among the most refined naturally aspirated power plants in motorsports. They produce upwards of 3 horsepower per cubic inch in ideal conditions. A little less up here in the mountain, if you will, as Kyle Koretsky and Aaron Stanfield take the tree. They lead within a single thousandth of a second. Kyle Koretsky trying to stave off Stanfield, and he can't do it. 663.7 at 206.80 for Stanfield. It became a horsepower contest. 669.1 at 205, not enough for Kyle.
Like he's done all weekend, just a little too much power. Kyle Koretsky, they picked a bad time to fall off in terms of performance, but there he is right there. Take a look at the front end. This is a nice looking run, and it shows on the scoreboards.
I know Erica's not getting tired of making final rounds, but she may be getting tired of looking across and seeing Aaron Stanfield, because here they go again. Another one. Here we go with Jamie.
And for Erica, you might remember this morning, she said to catch up with her, all the other teams are just going to have to work harder, but she's done that today. You had a 35 light in the first round, 22 in the second. You were 14 there in the semifinals. You have lost lane choice. What can you do to turn it around?
Man, I just got to keep working on my clutch pedal. Chase has been great back in the pits, helping me with the linkage. I've been meeting with my crew chiefs in between rounds, and they've been telling me, we've been first out, which is kind of sucky for leave RPM, but my crew chiefs have been letting me know all of the data so I can tune up the linkage for myself. But that's what we're going to have to do here is go to work. Aaron's had the car to beat all weekend, but this Melling Performance Hot Rod is running on me, and I got Mark Ingersoll and my boys in my bank. So we're going to do our best, let God do the rest. But either way, happy Father's Day to my dad and happy birthday to my mom.
Mark Ingerson and Angel Sampey come to the starting line. Sampey, the Vance and Hines Mission. Suzuki. Ingerson on his SNS. Buell. Ingerson, a massive starting line advantage, but he spun the tire. He got 700s, but that tire spin may sink his ship, and it does. 6.907, 197. Angel gave Mark Ingerson a leash 3 bikes long.
Got to count your lucky charms when it works and falls your way. It hasn't been the case for Angel in the past several races, but she got away with another one. It was a great starting line advantage, but Brian, like you talked about, for Mark Ingerson, very sharp off of the starting line. It almost paid off, but you could see the mechanical problems settle in, or it was just a missed setup on the bike.
Ingerson is having a career season, nothing to hang his head about here. He has become a factor in this class. Now let's go to Jamie Howe.
It's back-to-back races where we'll see Aaron Stanfield and Erica Enders in the final round of eliminations. She just said that you have the car to beat. You do have lane choice. What do you have for her in the final?
We've got a fast hot rod here. Man, I just got to thank everybody working on my race car, JC3, Janik Brothers. Man, we want to get it done here in Bristol, and we got a tough customer. It just goes to show how awesome Elite is. I mean, to back-to-back races with all Elite finals, I mean, that's really tough to do, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
Now it is Jerry Savoie. You see here an Angie Smith across the racetrack. For Aaron Stanfield, he's a quiet-spoken guy. Carries his dad's driving gene with him. They are very scary and fun to watch. The Denso Pink Machine for Angie Smith. We heard the emotion in her voice, remembering her late father. Trying to achieve a race victory in his memory here, but she has to get around Jerry Savoie to do it. Savoie seeking his 31st career final. Angie seeking her 4th. And Jerry, once again, electric at the starting line, and he beats her 697.9 to a 698.4. Jerry Savoie, the alligator man, heads to a final round, chomping his whole way through, and Matt Smith can't believe it.
Well, this is a good day, and Matt Smith, he has to be disappointed because their machine fell off almost 0.2 of a second, just bad timing. We've talked about the intensity of the sun on the racetrack. Sometimes that could induce some tire slippage, and the 60-foot time is so critical with these bikes, but Jerry Savoie, pretty quick, pretty steady today.
Less than 1 full motorcycle length for Jerry Savoie. It will be a very, very entertaining final round to watch. And when we come back, we'll check in on our teams as they prepare for the finals in Ron Cap's pit area. We are back at Bristol Dragway, the Thunder Valley Nationals. The final rounds are setting up nicely. A lot of fans in the pits checking out the Cornwell Quality Tool Display, entering their names in for drawings. A lot of fun, a lot of prizes available down there as well, and certainly a lot of great tools and toolboxes to check out. As we've made it to this critical part of the weekend, this critical part of this Sunday, we're going to kind of give our own opinions on who we think might be able to win this race, as the fans are still milling around down there, getting themselves positioned in the best seat possible to take on the final round action. Hey everybody, welcome back into the broadcast booth here. Brian Lones and Tony Pedregon. And, Tony, are going to put each other on the hot seat a little bit here and try to figure out who we believe is going to win this race. And since you're the funny car guy, I'm going to make you pick first in the funny car category.
Well, it just seems to be one of those days that Ron Capps is not going to be denied. I wouldn't have said that after qualifying, but based on what they did in the first round, coming back, rebounding from that first round explosion, going up against Robert Height in the second round, you can see here in the first round, the tire slippage, the valve train failure, and it really destroyed the body, and they opted not to bring out a spare car. They just changed the engine. I'm sure a lot of electrical lines, and going up against who we thought would have won after qualifying, and that was Robert Height. But it's how they have performed it. It seems effortless, while every other team out here is having some issues. after that first round, they have been the quickest in the first round, in the second round, in the semifinals. And I don't think they're going to go on defense. It is said that the best defense is a good offense, and I think they're going to continue what they have been doing all day.
So Tony has picked Ron Capps as we get a look here at our final round matchup between Ron Capps and Tim Wilkerson. The last final round for Ron was the 2022 Las Vegas 1 race, the 4-wide race, which he won. For Tim Wilkerson, it was back at the second fall Charlotte race last year, a race that he won as well following the U.S. Nationals. Ron has been chosen by Tony, and Bruno is going to talk to Tim.
For the semifinals, Tim Wilkerson told me it was time to stop playing defense and to get out in the offensive. He did just that and advanced to the final round, but you had your hands full inside that race car, and you're going to have your hands full here against Ron Capps. Where do you need to find that tune-up? Where can you find a low 4.0?
I don't know. I was throwing a screen pass, and my guy got tackled 5 yards off the line there. It wasn't good offensive play. So I don't know. We're going to try a little harder this time, of course. You know, they've had the best car all day, no doubt about it. It's been an expensive day over there in the Napa pit. You've seen some stuff on fire and blowed up, and so they need the money, but we need the points and the money. So we're going to try our best to to level the playing field a little bit. Everybody knows our car will run better than it's running all day today. I've just missed it. I missed it 3 runs in a row, and maybe this last run will be good. But hey, for everybody that helps our car, the Levi Rand shop guys, they've been with me for 21 years. So happy birthday, Dick Levi. I think all of the things that happened with him all the new year. We went to a special birthday party for him this year, and we had a great time there. And it was a surprise for him, so we had a great time with that. But now it's Father's Day, and all of us fathers are looking good. I just took out Father Time, John Forst. So Dick, happy Father's Day to you too, buddy. But we'll see how things go.
Well, in Top Fuel, if you wanted to pick who was quickest in the semifinals, your vote for the winner today would go to Justin Ashley. He's also going to back-to-back final rounds. He's already won 1 race this season, but I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. My pick today is going to be on Shawn Langdon, and the reason being he hasn't been to a final round since Gainesville back in 2021. So nearly 15 months ago. He hasn't won since Indy back in 2020. And when you look at the lights today, Shawn has the better of Justin Ashley. He's got an average of a 62 compared to Justin's 68. And oh, by the way, Shawn's already won once today. He did get that Super Comp win that we've covered since the morning session today. So I think that there's a lot of momentum on the line today for Shawn Langdon. For more on Pro Stock, here's Bruno.
Well, Jimmy, in Pro Stock, it can be hard to bet against Erica Ender. She's won 4 of 6 races, and she has been killer on the tree all day today. But the thing is, sometimes you've got to buck the trend. You've got to think outside the box. Aaron Stanfield is hungry. He lost to her in the final round in Epping. He has got the quickest car, and that kid can lead the starting line. A multi-world champ in the factory stock ranks is about to get the victory here today.
Thank you, Bruno. And that leaves us one category, and that is Pro Stock Motorcycle. And it brings up the grand question, is it the rider or the machine they're riding? If I'm simply going to pick on the machine they're riding, I'm picking Angel because she has been consistently quicker than Jerry Savoie. But I'm not. I'm choosing Jerry Savoie to win this race. His last final was in Dallas 2020. His last win also in Dallas 2020. I choose Jerry because of his starting line acumen today. He was been 002. He was 12 in the last round. Angel has been all over the place on the tree. Her 093 reaction time in the last round may be an overcompensation. Who knows what happens in the final? We're going to find out together in just a few minutes. Shawn Langdon warming up that CMR Construction DHL Top Fuel Dragster right now. We will be back with the final rounds of elimination here at the Thunder Valley Nationals in just a minute.
The NHRA Thunder Valley Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Camping World, making RVing fun and easy since 1966.
We are back at Bristol Dragway. The live funny car final as Ron Capps and Tim Wilkerson heat the tires. They come at this final round in very different directions. Capps in the Napa Toyota left-hand side of your screen. Tony, we can only surmise one thing. Crew chiefs Dean Antonelli and John Medlin, beyond anybody else, tortured this data they got today until it confessed something to them, because this car has looked unstoppable.
Well, you talk about 2 guys that come from John Force Racing, and I'm going back years and years, but my point is those 2 have worked together for a long time. And John Medlin really doesn't get the credit that he deserves, but he is a big part of the tuning decisions. And Dean Antonelli, he's done such a good job recovering from what happened in the first round. But in the process, they really ran good. But you look over in the other lane, the problem with racing Tim Wilkerson is he's been in this situation where you've really counted him out. And the question is how fast does Tim think he can go on this track? And that's for that reason, I don't think the Napa team is going to pull back. They're not going to lay up much.
For Ron Capps, this is final round number 134. He is seeking victory number 70 in a Hall of Fame career that shows no signs of slowing. For Tim Wilkerson, it is final round number 48, seeking Wally number 23. Wilkes Warriors are the fans of Tim Wilkerson. The Levi Ray and Shelf Mustang takes to the pre-stage B. And Ron Capps escaped first and gets the win line. 398.4, 324 miles an hour. One of our funny car drivers said we need to run 3-second laps all day long to win this race. There has been one 3-second run today, and that was it.
Well, you know, they did their work in the previous 3 rounds. They're probably looking at the best conditions on the racetrack that they've had all day long. So the rigorous, the tough decisions were made in the first round, in the second round when it warmed up, and in the semifinals when it was probably the most treacherous and the most heat in the racetrack. But you can see this was a very well-deserved and a dominating performance. Credit to Tim Wilkerson. He finally got his car down the racetrack under power. But Ron Capps, there's one thing about him. He's always good on the starting line, and you give him a car like he has today, all of a sudden he has wedged a pry bar in the conversation when we talk about Robert Hight and Matt Hagan.
I'm putting the pry bar down. He just came through the wall like the Kool-Aid man into the conversation. There is now a third man very seriously in that funny car fight. A brilliant performance in this final round, not to mention the 0.66 reaction time to boot.
Well, Ron Capps is really one of the drivers that we talked about. We talked about the big 3. It was Robert Hight, it was Matt Hagan, and it was Ron Capps. But over the last couple of races, they just really haven't shown us much. That has changed today.
So Tim Wilkerson has to be buoyed by this final round appearance. He is clearly disappointed by losing the drag race, but to reestablish confidence, to reestablish a kind of normality to his team, a final round appearance, and for Ron Capps, it is validation of every ounce of his team. Their ability to thrash, their ability to rebound from a near disaster to victory. And we are now setting up a very memorable Top Fuel finalist. Sean Langdon, the CMRRoofing.com, DHL dragster, and the Phillips Connect machine of Justin Ashley. Sean Langdon is quite literally playing with house money. He has already won a Wally today. Langdon captured the victory in the Super Comp category, one of the NHRA's many sportsman drag racing classes. As he backs his dragster up, consider Sean Langdon's career a national champion in the junior dragster ranks, a 2-time national champion in Super Comp. He has won a Top Fuel championship. He has won a Nitro Funny Cars. Bruno Massel has more to add.
Well, talking with Kurt Elliott, his crew chief, a few moments ago, he told me they feel fully confident in the tune-up they have in this car for the first time in a long time. He said right now track conditions the best they've seen all weekend long. They know that Justin Ashley outran them in the semis by a couple hundred, but the 380 tune-up they ran in the first round is going in this car, and he's putting his faith in his driver to get the job done.
The way that these two attack the starting line, Tony, we could be looking at the proverbial brawl inside a phone booth with very small numbers.
Yeah, and I don't think one or the other is going to get much off of the starting line, but for Sean Langdon, you have to race the 381 the previous round by Justin Ashley.
They leave within 5,000ths of a second, and it's Justin Ashley. 381.3, 325 miles an hour. Langdon denied becoming the third man to ever double up at an NHRA national event in a sportsman professional category with a solid 384 effort. Ashley was out first by 5 thou and simply finished the race 3/100ths of a second ahead of Sean Langdon. It is another win for Ashley after winning in Pomona this year. Now let's go to the top end of the racetrack as we have our funny car winner, Ron Capps, with Jamie Howe.
This is certainly a place that Ron Capps has been before, but this is the first win with the GR Super Body, and it's the second one that you had today. Validation was a word that was used. What word would you give race day today?
GR. That badge isn't just given out, so thank you, Toyota. Unbelievable. Napa people, I've told you time again, I love representing you. Thank you for letting me do that. Marty, Kevin, Catherine. I don't know what to say right now. This is unbelievable. Ron Capps Motorsports, to have 2 wins already is crazy. But, you know, I've gotten my dad a few of these trophies, and my in-laws, Bob, my wife's dad, they've been following us. They changed their whole lives to follow their son-in-law, Ron Capps, and I love them for it. Bob, this is going home to you guys. I love you. Thank you for all your help. Appreciate it, man.
It is always an emotional win here on this Father's Day. We have seen it out of every winner so far. The emotion overcoming them. We watch again.
You know, for Justin Ashley, remember, these guys came from the number 14 position. So what Mike Green and the trust that he has, the confidence that he has in his driver, it's just such a good combination. We've talked about Brittany Force. We've talked and been impressed by Mike Salinas. But, you know, Justin Ashley is the other guy that I said has the capability of contending for a championship.
And once again, he has showed the world just that. Now let's go to the top end. Jamie Howe, he didn't get it done in Epping, but he sure got it done here.
It is a sense of redemption for Justin Ashley. He's got the blue hat on his head, holding up the Wally. It's Father's Day. I know this is all about family for you. What do you want to say to them?
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there that make dreams like this possible. I really have to take a second and thank Phillips Connect and Rob and Jim and Susan for all that they do to put us in this position. Chip Lofton, Mark Beaver, and Vitasy Energy give us all that energy we need to come out here and be successful. Auto Shocker, Kato, of course, Toyota Gazoo Racing North America, Lucas Oil, Tommy Delago, and Mike Reed did such a good job with this Phillips Connect Top Fuel dragster all day. Again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We're very blessed, very privileged to be here, and we're enjoying it. Thank you.
It's that Wally. Congratulations.
Yes!
We have burned nitro. We look at our top fuel standings. Justin Ashley has moved to third, displacing Steve Torrance to fourth. Mike Salinas maintains a tenuous number 2 position ahead of Ashley, and Brittany Force still stands on top of the category. Nitromethane has been burned. Up next, Pro Stock. Aaron Stanfield and Eric Anders for the 3rd time this season. Eric is seeking a 3rd straight race victory, a 3rd straight conquest of Aaron Stanfield, and another notch in the belt of this season, which has looked better than anything she's ever done, and she is now a 4-time world champion.
Unlike previous races, Brian, she really isn't the favorite coming into this final round. In fact, she is 200ths behind in terms of performance, but you know, good tuners can make up 100th, 200ths of a second. We've seen it really in every round in each of these Pro Stock races. But you think about the overall conditions, if anything, they've improved. The sun at this time of day tends to move off, cast a little bit of a shadow. So, you know, it's not out of the question that Erica can run quicker. The question is Aaron going to be able to maintain that performance advantage?
To me, the hallmark of these two drivers are the fact that they do not squander opportunity. Aaron Stanfield does not ever squander the fact that he has a great car. Erica Enders, through the course of her career, a lot of people forget, through the beginning years of her career, she could barely qualify. She was not in equipment that was competitive. Once she got with the Lee Motorsports in around 2014, the game changed for Erica, and again, it is a capitalization on opportunity. The Janik Brothers Racing JC3 Energy Camaro in white and red, and the Melling Performance Chevrolet wearing red, closest to the camera. These two drivers that have brought the art of the starting line to a literal science now move into pre-stage. Cockpit is filled up with smoke, and Aaron Stanfield is driven to a bizarre final round Pro Stock victory. Tony, we barely ever see him leave like that, and we never see a car enveloped in smoke in Pro Stock like this.
Yeah, you almost wonder if oil line or maybe something in the transmission came off and got on the hot exhaust pipes. I'm sure we'll have a better idea. Hopefully we see Erica get out of the car soon. I'm sure she's unbuckling her belts. There she is. You see the movement. The door's open.
Safety Safari is on the scene. She is out of the car right now. But again, this car was not just simply smoking. It was enveloped like a 1960s funny car burnout.
Yeah, and just as she appeared to be on her way, she had the slightest advantage off the starting line, but better in 60 feet. It does appear that they're taking a look at her.
And you can see some flummoxed looks on the starting line, but Erica out of the car, continuing to catch her breath. Aaron Stanfield did everything he possibly could. He does get the victory. You can see her kind of disappointingly hitting her thighs with her hands. 8:03.3 at 184. Not the way anybody drew this one up.
Well, regardless of the supplied air that these drivers are equipped with, that really doesn't do much when the car, especially the cockpit, is engulfed with that kind of smoke. I'm sure she was holding her breath. She probably inhaled whatever type of smoke that was. But look at her car start to shake. She drives through it. There's Aaron Stanfield. It appeared that he was done. He was out of the throttle. But he was able to see peripherally all of that smoke from Erica's car, and that was just enough to allow him to get back on the throttle.
We watch this view from overhead. Cumulonimbus clouds exiting the back of the Pro Stock car as Aaron Stanfield scoots by. To Erica's credit, completely blinded by the smoke, she kept the car in her lane. It could have been devastating if that car had drifted over and Aaron had made contact. You can see Erica, she is up and out of the race car. The Safety Safari responding with their normal lightning effectiveness. As they get ready to move the car, we now transition to Jamie Howe at the big end of the racetrack.
And Aaron Stanfield has already collected his volley. The celebration has begun. We do know for you that Erica is out of the race car at this point. It was back-to-back final round appearances for you. What made the difference today?
Well, we as a team, we did a really good job today. That was not a good show in the final round there. We had some tire shake, and I tried to shift through it, and I saw some smoke, and I just stuck it back in gear and tried to get there. And that was just a pretty wacky final round there, but it's Father's Day. I want to say happy Father's Day to my dad. It's the best gift I can give him. This is a great racetrack, great fans, and we just love being here, and we're glad we could get it done. Thank you to the Janik brothers, JC3 Energy, Elite Motorsports, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And after that excitement, as Erica Enders walks with her sister Courtney as a consult with the NHRA's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Phil Surface, we now bring our Pro Stock motorcycles to the line. Jerry Savoie sitting atop his Suzuki, which has received, through a mad thrash, an engine change between the semifinal and final rounds. Will be facing off against Angel Sampé, the Vance & Hines Mission Foods Suzuki. You just saw Andrew Hines leaning in there. Andrew, who is one of the winningest racers in the history of Pro Stock motorcycle, is not riding this year. He is simply serving, and I do not mean to diminish his role by saying simply. He is focusing his efforts as being the crew chief for Eddie Krawick and Angel, and we've seen both of those bikes perform very well this season.
Well, we've seen a lot of opportunities that have really slipped out of the hands of Angel based on her ability, her performance on the starting line, and she's made some improvements. However, in the semifinals, one of the things that she has to do mentally as a competitor, forget about the 093. I'm sure she's disappointed. She was on the brink of losing that race. She was able to drive around her competitor, but you really have to look at this as you have another opportunity. You're still here, and you're up against a rider that has had a motor change. He's been pretty good on the starting line, so you've got to hope they really didn't have enough time to make the changes to adjust to the current conditions that they wanted.
We look at what the reaction times have been for these riders over the last few rounds. Angel has been 15, 41, then 93. Jerry has been 65, then 002, and then 12. The performance advantage on paper favors Angel by 0.07 of a second, which is more a train length than a motorcycle length. Jerry on the Toyota side with a fresh engine, if unproven. Angel, the E3 side, trying to go back-to-back here, win the only 2 Pro Stock motorcycle races ever held at Bristol Dragway. The high-revving Suzuki's now in pre-stage. She went red. 052 red light start for Angel. Jerry Savoie handed with a gift bow on top, a Wally. 692.9. He was 300 slower on performance. She went 6.909 at 182. And what a turn of emotional events for this team. The depths of despair, choosing an engine or swapping an engine, and now a victory.
Well, what a great day for Jerry Savoie, but it's such a heartbreaker for Angel. This is one of the problems that she has had. She has acknowledged it. She has accepted full responsibility, which is very hard for a lot of these drivers, a lot of these riders to do, but she's been honest to her fans, to our audience. but just another one that has slipped away. Now, you have to give a lot of credit to Jerry Savoy. He was able to put a tune-up on that bike. They stepped the performance up. They only got outrun by 0.02 of a second on the racetrack, but you know, it's just some of these drivers, you know, when they lose confidence, they just hear footsteps, and that's never a good thing.
We watch again, Angel, a 90 red light, which is a 52 rather, which is a fairly significant number. These bikes are the quickest reacting machines outside of a pro stock car. And the White Alligator Racing Team, Jerry Savoy now 2-1 against Angel in finals. They hadn't raced each other in a final since 2016. Let's go up to Jamie Howe with our pro stock motorcycle winner, Jerry Savoy.
The emotion has already set in for Jerry Savoy. He's holding his first Wally since the 2020 season. Jerry, for you came off of a weekend that you had to miss with a broken toe. What kind of redemption was this after the work your team just put in the pits?
Yeah, I know I missed last weekend, and we blew up the engine in the third round, and the guys thrashed, and we had like 25 minutes to get ready. And thanks to Vance Hines for waiting on us and the NHRA. But look, this goes to my dad, Blue Savoy. His blood runs through my veins and gives me the need for speed. Blue, I love you. I know you watch me.
Pure passion and love there for Jerry Savoy as we watch again from the drone. The gap existing because Angel left the starting line too early. A foul start ended her day in the final. And this is the Sunoco Winner's Circle. Ron Capps, Justin Ashley, Aaron Stanfield, and Jerry Savoy have won the first half of what will be a 2-round battle, because next week we head to Norwalk, Ohio. Tune in Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, right back here on Fox. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Bruno. And thank you for watching.